hit subscribe. Subscribe to my guy, Uncle D. Tell him Big Bass sent you.
Spurling. I'm an attorney here in Houston, Texas, an advocate for black men, largely because I am a black man. I'm a black father. I have black sons. Hey, man, I do what I do.
Yeah, baby, what's happening? Welcome back to the broadcast. Shout out to everybody who ain't seen me live in a long time. I've been busy. How about that? Big shout out to all of my people up in here, man. Mr. 43TX, shout out to you. Mr. Poohman313, dedicated to the cause. Big shout out to Mark the Freelancer. Shout out to Braxton, the Snake Fiend. Also, big shout out to who else we got up in here, man? Where I see my members. Now, where's the wrench mob at? I need the wrench mob to make their presence known. I want you all to say what's up, baby. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to be here. Make sure you let everybody know where you came from. Somebody want to know where my jelly jar is. Right here, baby. I'm sipping good. I hope everybody has been having a good time. I've been putting up these tidbits, these videos, but I decided on this particular evening that I wanted to address a topic that I have been dealing with for some time now, okay? And that particular topic has to do with reparations. Somebody typed reparations in the chat room. It is a controversial thing to give black folks reparations. And when I say black folks, I'm not talking about racial, I'm talking about foundational black American people. Now, here's the thing. For those of you all who've been with me from day one, you know that I've been dealing with this particular issue since way back in 2000. So I've been dealing with it 5 years. Shout out to my man, Red Sidney. Thank you so much for being the first person to contribute to the super chat. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you sincerely. Thank you. And everybody else, look, man, as I said before, as I say all the time, if you don't learn something, then I don't need to earn nothing. Okay. But if you learn something, I should earn something. I'm not out here begging for anything. But if I teach you something that you didn't otherwise know, and then you feel so inclined as to contribute to the super chat, then we good. And it doesn't matter if it's the super chat or the super love button on the rebroadcast. Shout out to all the rebroadcast people. I appreciate you all. Give you a big hand. Shout out right now. But again, I'm not out here begging, but if you learn something, I should earn something. So again, like I say, welcome back to the Dennis Spurling podcast, the voice of truth, justice, and power for foundational black Americans. Now, in today's episode, it's not just a broadcast, it's a declaration. Okay. For decades, we've heard politicians, black folks especially, black politicians, they've gone and come. They've given lip service about reparations or reparative justice. We've seen commissions form. We've watched symbolic gestures handed out like candy, apologies, plaques, statues, hashtags. But when it came time to write the check, when it came time to deliver the real justice, the system stalled, distracted, and retreated. Well, I'm not here asking for justice anymore for foundational black Americans. I'm here to build a pathway to it. Somebody type pathway in the chat room. Hallelujah. Somebody type pathway in the chat room, okay? Because that's what we're doing. And I may not get there with you, but I've seen the promised land, as they say. Bottom line is, this is a pathway for posterity. You see? And as I said, over the past 4 years, I, Dennis Spurling, civil litigation attorney, descendant of the enslaved Americans, have drafted and submitted the Foundation of Black American Slave Trade Restorative Justice Act of 2025. And it can be changed to 2026, 27, whatever. Okay, and this isn't some vague policy suggestion or an academic exercise. This is draft legislation backed by a proposed executive order and a comprehensive legal rationale and the constitutional authority. And it has also, it's already been placed directly into the hands of decision makers in Washington, D.C., including Senators John Cornyn, Senator Ted Cruz, both of Texas, and our current president, somebody type 47, President Donald J. Trump. And see, what makes this approach different is it's three things. It's lineage-based, not race-based. This legislation targets a specific class of Americans, foundational Black Americans, and those whose ancestors were illegally trafficked into the U.S. And this is after the federal ban in 1808. It excludes recent immigrants from Africa or the Caribbean. And this is not about being Black. It's about being descendant from a specific injustice under U.S. law. It's legally sound. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not begging. We're following the model laid out by Congress itself in the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, JAST or JASTA, which allows American citizens to sue foreign governments for supporting acts of terrorism. We are simply asking, why should successor African states who helped traffic enslaved Africans after it was outlawed in 1808 be treated any differently? It doesn't rely on Congress alone. We've included a proposed executive order that the president can sign today to create an interagency task force without asking for another vote, another delay, or another excuse. This is the first serious legislative effort in American history to pierce the sovereign immunity established jurisdiction and empower foundational Black Americans to sue those who violated our ancestors, their humanity, and this nation's laws. It's bold, it's specific, and most importantly, it's doable. So while others are stuck talking in circles about what we deserve, and I'm here to say, this is what we're claiming. Shout out to Mr. 43TX. And we're claiming it through the law that's already on the books, through the history, and through the very Constitution that this country was built on. We're not begging. It's about litigation. This is not about division. It's about specificity. It's not about blaming the present. It's about healing the past so we can reclaim our future. Look, I'm going to show you. Everybody get your little cell phones out. I want you to see what I've done. I want you to see it. I'm not hiding it. I'm dividing. You understand me? I'm not going to hide it. I'm dividing it. Okay? Matter of fact, I'm going to let you see the letter that I sent to Donald Trump. Let me let y'all look at the letter. I want you to see it. Okay? I sent it on April 25th. I'm going to share the screen. I'll see the letter on my letterhead. Speaking of which, if anybody needs a lawyer, you've been involved in a car accident, y'all make sure this is, I'm doing this, but this ain't my main forte, but I'm doing it for my people because I feel it needs to be done. And so I would like for my people to support me. Now let's go ahead. So if you've been involved in some sort of motor vehicle accident, it doesn't matter where you are around the country. Uncle D got a lot of people everywhere. This is the letter that I sent FedEx to the Trump White House, and there's one similar. I'm gonna read it to you. Okay, y'all reading? You ready? All right, let's read it together. And it's addressed to Donald Trump at the White House. Dear President Trump, my name is Dennis D. Spurling. I write to you as an attorney and representative of a growing coalition committed to a lineage-based restorative justice for foundational Black Americans who are the descendants of those unlawfully trafficked to the United States after the 1808 federal ban on the transatlantic slave trade. I respectfully submit to your review the enclosed draft legislation entitled the Foundational Black American Slave Trade Restorative Justice Act of 2025, along with a proposed executive order establishing a federal task force to investigate and respond to these historic crimes. These instruments represent a legally sound, historically justified, and morally imperative path towards redress for a uniquely American lineage. Foundational Black Americans, hashtag FBA. Somebody type FBA in the chat room. They address the enduring historical significance and profound national importance, the legacy of the illegal post-1808 transatlantic slave trade and its direct impact on the descendants of those Africans unlawfully brought to the United States in violation of the act prohibiting the importation of slaves in 1807. So this law was already on the books and they still were violating it. Despite this federal prohibition taking effect on January 1st, 1808, evidence confirms that slave ships, including the Clotilda and the Wanderer, somebody type that in the chat room. Somebody type the Clotilda and the Wanderer, continued transporting enslaved Africans directly to U.S. soil, often with the involvement or sponsorship of certain African nations. These actions were not only illegal under the U.S. law, but also inflicted permanent damage on individuals. Shout out to my man, Tame Chaos. I'm gonna make sure I read all the super chats in detail, but this is busy work. This is good work. I need to make sure I read this coherently because I know we got people who are listening to this, and this is a roadmap. I'm giving you the game. This is what our children will be able to look at and pick it up. Let's keep listening. Let's keep listening to me now. These actions were not only illegal under U.S. law, but also inflicted permanent damage on the individuals enslaved and their descendants, known as foundational Black Americans. Every time I say foundational Black Americans, I want y'all to type FBA in the chat room. Let's practice foundational Black Americans. Y'all type FBA in the chat room. Come on now. As a legal scholar and a practicing attorney, I have drafted proposed legislation titled the Foundational Black American Slave Trade Restorative Justice Act of 2025, designed to establish federal jurisdiction for civil actions against successor African states whose predecessors participated in these post-1808 transgressions. I have also developed a complementary executive order to be issued by the President of the United States. The executive order formally establishes an interagency task force to investigate the successful African states' involvement, recommend legal and diplomatic remedies, and assist the development of federal legislation. Legal constitutional basis. I want the people in the back to pay close attention because many of you all, every time we bring up reparations, you armchair lawyers always try to give me reasons why it won't happen. And I'm telling you, as that in the United States of America, we can do any darn thing we want to do, especially enact laws, okay? Listen to this. More than 2 centuries ago, the act prohibiting the importation of slaves in 1807 made it a federal crime to traffic enslaved Africans to the U.S. after January 1st, 1808. Yet, as documented with slave ships like the Clotilda and the Wanderer, illegal trafficking continued, with many African kingdoms acting as collaborators in direct defiance of U.S. law. And this proposed act establishes federal jurisdiction for civil actions, which means money. Somebody type money in the chat room. For civil actions against successor African states. Somebody type successor state in the chat room. Okay, whose historical regimes participated in the illegal post-1808 trade. What that means is when you take over another country or nation, a kingdom or whatever, you don't just inherit their land and their benefits, you also inherit their debts. And so the kingdom of Ghana, they might not be there, but the country of Ghana exists. All those countries, the nations, they're the successor state. And see, this follows the precedent, and I laid it out there because, you know, I want Trump to see. It follows the precedent set by the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act of 2016. This allowed American citizens to sue Saudi Arabia for what happened on 9/11, 15 years before. And they sued them and they got judgments. So this literally gave American citizens the right to sue foreign countries for terrorism. And I don't think anything is more terroristic than the slavery and what we had to do. Nevertheless, like JASTA, this legislation includes a waiver of sovereign immunity, a private right of action. A private right means you can sue it. When you do your history and you do your research and you find out that your great-grandmother was brought to this country, or a great-great-grandmother was brought to this country after 1808 in one of those illegal slave ships, and you put the documentation together and you present it to court, and you give grounds for a lawsuit, you have a right to bring forth a claim, okay? As a private citizen. And here's the other thing. I'm proposing a 50-year statute of limitation beginning upon the claimant's discovery of eligibility. What does that mean? What that means is you might not know now. But when you start doing the research, from the time you actually find out and you get that research and you get something in writing and you get the documentation, you have 50 years to sue. You see? The Supreme Court of the United States recently upheld the constitutionality of JASTA in 2023 in Twitter Incorporated versus Tamina 598 US 471 2023. So what I'm trying to explain to you all is this is a legal pathway to get reparations. Isn't that what you want? Isn't that what y'all want? You say you want reparations, but some of you all don't have the stomach for it. You're weak, just like many of our ancestors. And I'm not like you. See, let me go ahead and get all into you right now, because y'all don't know who you're dealing with. Some of you all are weak. You're soft as cotton swab. You're soft as a wet tissue napkin. You're not built like me. You don't want the smoke. You don't have the stomach for it. And people like Harriet Tubman would leave your black behind on the plantations. You're not built for it. So go step yourself aside and let the real hard hitters do what they have to do to get our people reparations. If you're against them, you're a punk. And you always will be a punk. And you should have been left on the plantation. It was black men like me who had to come back to the plantation to free your black behind because you wasn't man enough or woman enough to stand up. So I don't want to hear what you have to say. You have no guts. You have no courage. You're a coward. And you don't want to do for your children what your ancestors didn't do for you. But I'm not like you. So shout out to all the other black people who have the stomach for this, who want our reparative justice, who want our reparations, and we don't give a damn who pays us. Everybody who's responsible needs to pay up. How they work it out amongst themselves is on them. I don't care. Why don't we sue the European nations? Why don't we sue Ghana and all these rest of these Africans and let them deal with their partners from back in the day? Y'all was all in cahoots together to load us up on those ships. Y'all can deal with each other. Just give us our money or give us the opportunity to prove that we're entitled to the money and get our judgment. Let's finish this letter. Additionally, because this has been 5 years in the making, I want y'all to understand. Additionally, the U.S. and international human rights law recognize forced labor and slavery as enduring harm subject to legal and diplomatic remedy. The act aligns with these standards and draws authority from Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, as well as the 13th and 14th Amendments, empowering Congress to redress civil rights violations. These enslaved African individuals were citizens of these African kingdoms, and they were unlawfully captured, tortured, and sold to slave traders. This proposed act would reflect the principles of sovereignty, citizenship, and protection from the state-sponsored abuse under the International Covenant and Civil and Political Rights, the ICCPR, prohibiting governments from engaging in unlawful torture, cruel treatment, and arbitrary arrest. United Nations 1966 International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 7.9. Presidential exam. Let's talk about it. Y'all still with me? Let me know if you're with me, because I know we got the cowards up out of here. I want the cowards to leave. I don't like you. I want all the cowards to leave. I don't like you. If you ain't with it, you ain't with it. Leave the page now. You can leave. Go look at what, go talk about black men and black women not getting along. We gonna talk about money over here. That's what we doing over here. Get your cowardly butt out of here. You're unwelcome here. This is for real black men and real black women who want reparative justice. I don't want to hear about them. Our brothers and sisters. Get up out of here with that. If they were really your brothers and sisters, they that came over here and got your black behind within the past 400 years. They don't care about you. Let's continue. Ha ha. Praise God. As established through executive orders like Truman E.O. 9981, the desegregation of the military, and Clinton's EO 12 executive order, that's what that stands for, 12898, environmental justice. The president has broad authority to investigate and redress past legal injustices. The enclosed executive order would formally establish an interagency task force to investigate African participation in the illegal slave trade, recommend remedies, and assist Congress in drafting legislation. Now, I've already drafted the legislation, but we're going to keep looking. This is not a gesture of blame. It is an act of historical accountability, national healing, and legal consistency with your commitment to law and order. And this initiative represents a legally grounded and historically justified path towards restorative justice, an opportunity to advance American leadership on human rights from a position of strength. In other words, we're not begging or asking you for anything. We're taking what's ours, and you gonna like it or not, we don't care. The chance to shape history and forge legacy of national healing. The goal of this initiative are not rooted in blame, but in justice, recognition, and reconciliation. They are fully consistent with your legacy of putting America first. Somebody type America first in the chat room. Somebody type Americans first in the chat room. Somebody type foundational Black Americans first in the chat room. Somebody type FBA first in the chat room. Your long-standing advocacy for law and order. In this case, we seek to uphold the very laws violated over 200 years ago, laws that were enacted by our founders to end the gravest injustices in human history. I'm prepared to provide a full legal briefing, documentation, and scholarly support to assist your consideration in this matter. Enclosed, you will find a copy of the draft legislation, the supporting legal outline, and the proposed executive order for your review. Clarification, and let's be clear, clarification on eligibility under the Restorative Justice Act executive order. Who's eligible for this? To preserve the historical and legal integrity of this important initiative, it is necessary to define precisely who qualifies. Somebody type, you don't qualify, queen. Somebody type, we always talk about these kings and queens of Africa we want to be like, and these same damn kings and queens of Africa are the ones that sold us into slavery. Hell with them. I don't want to be like none of those kings and queens of Africa who sold my foundational Black American ancestors into slavery. May they go to hell in a handbasket. Now that's what I got to say. That's where we coming from today. That being the case, foundational Black American FBA are a distinct lineage group of Black Americans who are U.S. citizens by birth. You understand that? Can trace their ancestry to African people who were enslaved within the present day United States prior to the ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865, and who descend from families who endured and overcame slavery, survived Reconstruction, racial terror, resisted Jim Crow and segregation, and built their communities despite generations of systematic discrimination, including redlining, racial violence, exclusion from the GI Bill, employment and housing discrimination, and the disproportionate incarceration. FBA status is defined not solely by race, but by lineage, historical and lived experience, and historical continuity. Unlike the Black populations who immigrated to this U.S. voluntarily after slavery, such as Afro-Caribbeans, African immigrants, foundational Black Americans are direct descendants of those whose unpaid labor, civic exclusion, and cultural innovation helped build the United States from the ground up. Somebody type ground up in the chat room. Famous examples of foundational Black Americans. Let's go into detail. Uncle D did some work on this, baby. If you're learning something you didn't know, baby, don't forget to pay me. If you ain't learned nothing yet, that's all right. We're going to get you. It's going to be a long one. Y'all going to learn something. This is for posterity. This is for the cheering. You understand me? Because we got too many weak Negroes in the Black community right now that y'all wouldn't stand up and do this if you could. The following individuals are among the most recognized and celebrated foundational Black Americans whose family roots extend deep into the soil of the United States, with ancestry tied directly to those who endured slavery, fought for civil rights, and built the cultural foundation of this nation. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, born in Gary, Indiana, to a working class foundational Black American family, Jackson's artistry, creativity, and global impact are unmatched. But his legacy was born from generations of struggle and survival in the Jim Crow era Midwest and South. His family lineage traces formerly enslaved people in the Deep South. Denzel Washington, one of the most acclaimed actors and directors of our time, born in Mount Vernon, New York. Shout out to everybody in New York. Shout out to all my New Yorkers. Washington's parents and extended family hail from Virginia and North Carolina, placing his roots firmly in the legacy of American chattel slavery and the Great Migration. Shout out to Derek Hollingsworth. Thank you so much, family. His dignified portrayals of Black heroes reflect generations of perseverance. Kobe Bryant, NBA legend and cultural icon, born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Although he spent part of his youth in Italy, Bryant was raised in a family with deep Southern Black American roots. His father, Joe Jelly Bean Bryant, came from a lineage that traced back to the South enslaved populations. Serena Williams, she married to a white man, but that's okay. She's still foundational Black American. Same thing with Kobe Bryant. He's married to an Italian woman. Tennis champion and symbol of excellence, resilience, and power, born in Saginaw, Michigan, and raised in Compton, California. Williams' family is originally from Louisiana and Mississippi, linking her to enslaved ancestors and generations who rose above systematic barriers. Muhammad Ali, the greatest heavyweight boxer in history, born in Louisville, Kentucky, his birth name, Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr., was inherited from a white Kentucky slave owner, making his very identity a reminder of the institution of slavery. Ali's family history, like many FBAs, is marked by poverty, segregation, and the pursuit of dignity through resistance. Mike Tyson, shout out, somebody type Iron Mike. Born in Brooklyn, New York, to a family with deep ties in the American South, Tyson's rise from poverty, is incarceration, and social inclusion to become a world champion is emblematic of the FBA experience and resilience in the face of historic and institutional challenges. And of course, the venerable Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., civil rights leader, Nobel Peace Prize winner, born in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. King was a descendant of slaves and sharecroppers. His leadership during the 1950s and 1960s defined the modern movement for civil rights and solidified the FBA identity as one rooted in justice, endurance, and transformative leadership. These men and women are not just cultural icons. They are the sons and daughters of enslaved Africans, raised by the descendants of people who survived the Middle Passage, Jim Crow, redlining, and who stood at the front lines of American innovation, protest, and pride. They are foundational Black Americans, and the Restorative Justice Initiative outlined in this act in the executive order is designed for our communities, their ancestors, and their legacy. Now, we see who the foundational Black Americans are. Let's talk about who they're not. Somebody type non-FBA in the chat room. Can y'all hear me? I don't know if you can hear me clearly because I don't see a lot of crowd participation. I mean, can you hear me? Are you hearing with me what I'm saying? I want y'all to understand. Remember, I'm the bad guy. I want everybody on YouTube to remember who I am. I'm the one that gets your channels terminated if you say something I don't like. I'm the one that fights against the whole internet. When you make me angry, Uncle D will scrap with you. You understand? I want you to understand who I am. I will get down, dirty, and petty with this is who I am. Okay? I am the bad guy. Anybody? We're Native American. No, you're not. Okay? I'm the bad guy. And I don't care what you think. And I'm gonna keep doing what I'm supposed to do. Now let's go ahead and look at the non-FBA. Let's look at them. Y'all with me? Let me make it big. Now you notice, I want you to notice something because I know who my audience is. These are actually all black people that Donald Trump likes. These are the people he likes. I find it remarkable. They're all I love. He's always expressed admiration for these people. He likes these people. Now, guess who you think who are these non-FBAs? Non-foundational Black Americans encompass individuals who are of African origin, but descended from the recent voluntary migrations from Africa, Latin America, or the Caribbean. These individuals, somebody type individuals, these individuals are respectfully excluded. Somebody type respectfully excluded as they cannot trace their ancestral lineage to the enslaved Africans who were unlawfully trafficked into the United States of America. Restorative justice must be reserved for those whose ancestors built the United States through forced labor and survived its unique historical oppressions. Somebody type respectfully in the chat room. Shout out to my man MS Delta guy. Man, I ain't see you in a minute, baby. What's happening? Shout out to you for that 150. Yeah. Let me get on back to this work. I'm gonna get you later, man. Now, look what it is. Now, I told you the FBAs that I chose, Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson, these are ones that he liked. Who do you think these people are? Don't you think this is going? We know who Donald Trump is. Donald Trump he about that payback. Okay. So look, examples of non-FBA individuals who would be respectfully, somebody type respectfully, excluded from the designated class that include. In other words, these people wouldn't get any money. Tanya Chutkan, who is she? Chutkan. She is a U.S. district judge. She was born in Kingston, Jamaica. She's a Caribbean immigrant. Do you all know who she is? She's the judge who was in charge of one of the cases trying to prosecute Donald Trump in D.C. That's her, right? He don't like her. We know that. She from Jamaica. All right. Leticia James, currently New York Attorney General, may not be for long. Her family's from Trinidad. She's Afro-Caribbean. She is non-FBA. She would not be eligible for reparations. We know who her. She's the one that prosecuted Trump. We're going to take his money. I'm going to take all his money. We're going to put him in jail. We're going to seize Trump Towers. You know this chick. The soon not to be New York Attorney General. Damian Williams, and you might not know him, but this is the same prosecutor that prosecuted Donald Trump and some of his allies, and also is prosecuting. Now, he quit. Once Trump got elected, he's a U.S. Attorney, Southern District, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. He's from the Bahamas. Do y'all see something that's currently, you see a theme here? All the people that's giving Donald Trump a hard time are not FBA. Carl Racine, former D.C. Attorney General, born in Haiti. Stacey Plaskett, U.S. delegate, Virgin Islands, Caribbean descent. Joe Nisige, a congressman from Eritrea. All of these people are trying to prosecute Donald Trump. None of them are FBA. You understand what I'm saying? I just want y'all to think about that. Think about that. Nevertheless, this definition, and he knows these people, and more importantly, his staff and the people around him know these people. And so the thing is, this definition, so he's going to pay attention, okay? But this definition ensures that this restorative justice is limited to those whose families were enslaved in America, fought for freedom in America, and endured legalized oppression. Why this distinction matters? Why? We know why it matters, okay? Because we don't want people coming in reaping more benefit from us and becoming basically $5 Indians. You pay $5, you get declared an Indian. Nevertheless, this is not about creating division. Of course it's not, right? It's among African descent. I know that's what y'all, you create more division, you're divisive. No, this is about honoring the very specific debt owed to those whose blood, labor, and sacrifice built this nation under the most inhumane conditions imaginable, and who never left, never immigrated. We didn't run, we fought, okay? We don't take flight, we fight. All right, that's the difference between foundational Black Americans and the rest of y'all. Y'all take flight and we fight. Y'all take flight and we stay in flight, okay? That's what we do. That's the difference, all right? Nevertheless, by maintaining this careful distinction, we affirm the moral. Shout out to Nana, thank you so much. We affirm the moral. I'm gonna read all my super chats when I get to where we get. We got some time, baby. We got a lot of time here. I got a lot of work to do. Y'all gonna learn a lot. You gonna learn something tonight. Anyway, the legal historical foundations of the Restorative Justice Act effort with your executive leadership, we can apply the America First agenda, okay, to a community who has shed not only their blood, sweat, and tears for this nation, but poured our hearts, our rhythm, our soul into every word. Now, this is basically the letter. It kind of goes on. I talk a little bit about myself, you know, historical presidential elect as a proud graduate of Grambling State University, Southern University Law Center, Baton Rouge, two historically Black colleges and universities founded by foundational Black Americans. I'm deeply connected to the legacy and ongoing mission of institutions built by the descendants of American slavery. Your administration's April 23rd, 2025 executive order, which relocated the federal HBCU initiative to the White House, was widely celebrated in the HBC community. So I'm giving him shots. You know, I'm giving him shout out to him, man. I talk about the First Step Act, transformed it. The man has done a lot for Black people that he didn't have to do. The record low Black unemployment rates before COVID-19, the permanent historic funding for HBCUs, these opportunity zones, the clemency that he gave to the sister Alice Jones. These are things that this man should be rewarded for, okay? And I also talked about the fact that if he does sign this executive order on the establishment of the task force to pursue diplomatic and legal remedies for descendants of those illegally captured after 1808, that's going to put him in line with a President Abraham Lincoln or Lyndon B. Johnson. Remember, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all the slaves in the slave state. Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act. Harry S. Truman, who was a straight up racist, right? He signed an executive order desegregating the military, okay? And so this is the letter I sent to Donald Trump. Now, what I want to do at this point, I'm going to let y'all, for posterity, I want you all to take a photograph. I'm not selfish. I love my people, okay? Okay, I want you to look at this letter. I want you to look at this executive order. I want you all to take screenshots of it. And some of y'all might be asking, why is it that all the other lawyers on YouTube and all these other legal minds haven't thought of reparations and taking this path? Because they ain't me. That's why. Because I'm out here litigating in these streets. That's why. Because I really do this. I'm not a criminal defense lawyer. I'm not one of those. This is what I do all day. And I go against huge insurance companies, huge states, municipalities. This is what I do. Some of these people are not qualified to have these conversations about executive orders and reparations. They don't do money. They try to get people out of prison. They do contract work. Nevertheless, don't ask me why. Just be thankful. This is the proposed executive order. All my smart kids, I want you to screenshot this. Let me see if I can make this a little bit smaller. I want y'all to have this. This is you. This is your heritage. I want you to screenshot this. All right. This is the proposed executive order. You might not ever meet me in your life, but you have my work. Okay. I'm going to read a little bit of it for you. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. All right. I don't know if I can make it a little bigger, but it says executive order by President of the United States of America, executive order on the establishment of a task force to pursue diplomatic and legal remedies for the descendants of the illegal post-1808 transatlantic slave trade. It was illegal after this stuff. Some of y'all trying to get me to zoom in, baby. I'm doing my best to zoom in. I'm trying to get it a little bigger. I don't know if I can make this a little bigger on this screen for you. But Section 1, it is the policy of the United States to acknowledge and address the specific, let me see here. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger for you, family. Y'all with me? Okay, there we go. Look at me. All right. Is that better? Can y'all see that? Take pictures of this. All right. It is the policy of the United States to acknowledge and address the specific historical injustice suffered by foundational Black Americans whose ancestors were unlawfully trafficked into the United States in violation of the act prohibiting importation of slaves in 1807. Effective January 1st, 1808, despite the prohibition, evidence confirms the illegal transatlantic slave trade continued, including the infamous voyages of the such as those of the Clotilla and the Wanderer. These people were still bringing folk over here after it was illegal. All right, often conducted with the active participation of sponsorship of certain African nations. The United States recognizes a unique moral and legal and historical obligation to investigate these violations of U.S. international law and to facilitate diplomatic and legislative remedies consistent with the principles of law and justice and national healing. This is grounded in law, family. Okay? I want you to understand something. Okay? They already have laws. First of all, this act made it illegal. We got something in 2016 saying we can sue foreign nations. We got constitutional authority under the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8. We have laws in place already. This is sound law. Okay? The first thing we want to do is we don't need to do any more research. Okay, we don't need to do any. We know what slavery did, but what we want the president to do is create a task force, the Department of Justice, State Department, Homeland, to figure out who we need to sue. See, that's what I'm talking about. Who we need to sue. So this is what I want to get straight to the point. What is the task force going to do? This is the task force here. Right? And the president has the authority to do that under the executive branch. Identify nations of origins, examine historical and legal records to identify African sovereigns or successor states materially involved in the illegal slave trade after 1808. They got the records. They can do it. Recommend legal avenues, evaluate domestic and international legal frameworks to support civil claims, lawsuits by eligible foundational Black Americans, including statutes, treaties, and common law. Let them do the work. Give us the opportunity to sue these people. Evaluate sovereign immunity bearers, assess the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, and recommend statutory exceptions or judicial pathways to overcome immunity and operate in appropriate cases. Collaborate with the Department of State to engage diplomatic. So I got it all laid out here. The other thing we want, recognition of foundational Black Americans. The federal government formally recognizes foundational Black Americans as a distinct lineage group. Eligibility is defined as individuals who are U.S. citizens by birth, can trace their lineage to African ancestors enslaved within the present-day United States prior to the ratification of the 13th Amendment, descended from families who survived American slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, systematic racial discrimination unique to the U.S. experience. Okay? And here's some of the particular supportive legislative action, and I'm going to break that down for you in a minute. The president urges Congress to pass legislation such as the FBA Slave Trade Restorative Justice Act of 2025 that creates a private right of action for FBA against successor African states that participated in the illegal 1808 slave trade. The task force shall assist Congress in drafting legislation, create a federal jurisdiction over these claims so you can file in federal court. Waive sovereign immunity for relevant human rights violations. Some stuff is so bad we don't have to ask for permission. Establish a 50-year statute of limitations beginning upon the discovery of eligibility. And the Department of Justice shall provide technical expertise to support this legislative effort. They're going to give us the roadmap. Okay? Access to the legal resources and documentation. We're going to have access to the National Archives, Library of Congress, Department of Justice. Okay? And so this is generally it. And this will be signed by Donald Trump. Now, the other thing I want you to do, let's actually look now. So that is the actual proposed order. Executive order. I want you to look at the actual proposed legislation because this will be law. Okay? This is where I'm at. I'm not sitting around begging, ask for somebody to give us reparations. I'm gonna take what's mine. I'm not like y'all. I'm gonna get mine. You see what I'm saying? Let's take a look at the actual statute. I hope you all are taking photographs of this. I hope you're taking photographs of this. All right. I hope this broadcast, we have nearly 600 people in here. We need to get some more. This will be the act. Shout out to my man, Timothy Bright. The Foundation of Black American Slave Trade Restorative Justice Act, 2025. This act may be cited as the FBA Slave Trade Restorative Justice Act of 2025. What are the findings? Congress finds that despite the prohibition of the transatlantic slave trade by the act prohibiting importation of slaves in 1807, effective January 1st, 1808, the illegal importation of enslaved Africans directly from Africa to the United States continued, including notable incidents involving the slave ships Clotilda and Wanderer. These voyages, despite transient stops elsewhere, in other words, they stopped in the Bahamas, they stopped in the Caribbean, they still came up here. Those were just transient stops, okay? All right, nevertheless, those voyages, despite transient stops elsewhere, resulted in the direct and unlawful transportation of Africans to the United States. The impact of this illegal trade has been profound and enduring for the descendants known today as Foundation of Black Americans. So basically, this is the statute. I'm going to make it, what I'm going to try to do for you all is make it so that you can take a photograph of it if I can. That's what we're going to try to do. I'm going to try to do my best. There you go. So take a photograph of this page, blow it up. All right. Take a photograph of this page and blow it up. All right. It basically talks about private right of action. That means it gives private citizens the right to sue. It's going to be federal court cases, federal jurisdiction. Venue is going to be proper in the location on the plaintiff. So, for the instance in Clotilda, the Clotilda and those folks are still over there in Alabama. They can sue in Alabama. All right. What about the defendants? And these are the successor states, where the defendants maintain diplomatic consul or official presence. In New York, most of these African countries have consulates in New York. You can sue them in New York. Historical connection, where there's a significant historical connection to the transatlantic slave trade. Virginia, all these different places. All right. Exceptions to sovereign immunity. Now we're going to sue you because you violated our human rights and you broke the law. Now I want to read this one because I know you're hard-headed. All right. Successor state liability. The modern African nations are liable for the actions of their historical predecessors, states involved in illegal slave trade. You understand that? I know y'all learning something tonight. Ain't nobody else giving it to you like this. This is original content. Okay, I can sit up here and comment on people's videos, and I'll do that for a little while because y'all like that. But this is original mental power from your brother, Uncle D. You see, this is my intellectual property that I'm giving away to you for free because I love you. Somebody type I love you in the chat room. Somebody type Uncle D loves you in the chat room. I may not even do any of this, but I know there are some of you young minds out here now that I've planted the seed. When you make your way through law school 20, 30 years from now, you'll do this and you'll be able to come back to this. All right. Extended limitation. Any claim under the act may be brought within 50 years of the enactment of this act, okay, or from the date of discovery. The statute of limitations shall begin to run from upon the discovery or the date of a reasonable discovery. So once you do your research, you find out, you can sue on behalf of our people. What are the remedies? Compensatory damages, money. Plaintiffs may seek compensation for economic and non-economic harms, including property loss, emotional distress, loss of cultural identity. These are things we lost. Shout out to Timothy Bright. Punitive damages. So not only are we going to be made whole, but we're going to punish them for what they did. Courts may award punitive damages in cases involving egregious misconduct. Restorative justice measures. Courts may order actions contributing to the community restoration, including public apologies and the construction of community institutions and educational initiatives. Damages calculation. Courts shall consider facts such as the value of lost labor. How much was our labor worth? How much was our lost labor worth, family? Huh? What about the emotional trauma? How many years of emotional, how many centuries of emotional trauma and compacted emotional trauma? What about our cultural dislocation? We don't even know our names. You understand? And the enrichment unjustly obtained by the defendant. They basically sold us, took our land since we were warring tribes, and they took over our land. Shout out to Revenge of the Wildcats. That's right, Revenge of the Cottons. Yeah. We want our money. Shout out to Odell J. All right. So this is what we're gonna do. All right. So you guys hopefully have taken photographs of that. Have y'all taken photographs of that? I hope you did. Nevertheless, reparations is not an idea that I invented. It's a very controversial idea, and people have a lot to say about it. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna let y'all hear some of what these folks have to say about black folks. You got black people and everybody else seems to have something to say about these reparations. They don't want to see us be whole. They don't want to get us back to where we would have been. They don't want to compensate us for what they've done. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the commentary. Let's look at what the people have. This is a fella, I'm sure all y'all know him. Let's do
today of doing it on their own. That's why they fight for reparations and affirmative action, and they try to take for the white man. Black people.
You hear that? We trying to take what the white man. Okay. So because you have individuals like this man here, reparations is unpopular when it comes to getting the money from the coffers of the United States or whatnot. They say that belongs to the white man. Okay, got it. So then that means you shouldn't have a problem with us taking it from the quote unquote black people over in Africa that initiated. So it automatically gets rid of that barrier. You understand what I'm saying?
But today is not the same people that they were prior to the civil rights movement.
All right, so you hear what he had to say. Let's keep listening. Let's keep on listening, because a lot of people got a lot to say about us trying to get what's supposed to be ours. Okay, so let's keep listening. Coming from every which way. All right, who else got something to say?
Today, because I want to participate in our inclusive economy. This is getting ridiculous. The people in my community are asking for restorative justice. They're asking for us to repair the harms that previous members of this institution, and I would dare to say, Mr. Speaker, some current members, maybe they might.
So the problem that we have is that what time period are we talking about? Slavery was legal. Okay, slavery was legal during this time until it became illegal, and we were fighting a war about it at that time. All right, so how do we get people to pay a debt that it was lawful for them to do it? So we're gonna go back in history and charge some people for it legally. It can be done. You can literally do anything, but it would not withstand the test of the Constitution. Let's keep listening.
Oh, I'm not racist.
So there's a lot there. The first thing I want to mention, just before I forget, you mentioned reparations, for example. It is right. It is true that there's never been a program that has specifically said, here is a cash voucher for the experience of your ancestors during slavery. However, if you look at who pays the most into the tax system in this country, historically, it has been white Americans and also Asian Americans. And excuse me. And if you look, I know.
So you see that? So basically, he said, well, why should we have to pay? We already pay. He's saying the American taxpayer is going to have to pay for reparations. What makes you think we're going to give you a voucher for that? Okay, don't worry about it. We'll get it from the Africans. And if that's who we're going to get it from. We're going to get it from we'll get it at the source.
No, we got to go one at a time, though. And if you look at who has taken more out of the system, it has been black Americans. And we've spent over $1 trillion since the 1960s on the war on poverty, which disproportionately.
That's a lie. What the young man is saying, that's a lie from hell. The vast majority of people on Section 8 and WIC and all that are white people. And I think that's just pretty much known by everybody. But let's go ahead and keep looking. Let's look at the good Dr. Carter Anderson.
It's very firmly fixed in your mind. You're not here for a parlor discussion. It's not something to talk about that's nice. If you don't get reparations, black folk, you're through in this country. Let me be that very specific for you. You see, what's happening to black Americans is that black Americans have been systematically, socially engineered into the lowest level of a real-life monopoly game. You do not own and control a sufficient amount of.
For you all who don't know, this is Dr. Claude Anderson. Somebody type Dr. Claude Anderson in the chat room.
Anything to be competitive in America. And you've been marginalized now for 400 years. You're getting ready to be buried. You can get buried underneath a whole broad groups of ambiguous groupings. That's everything from culture groups, language groups, and gender groups. You're going down. It's no longer an issue. You better get reparations and get it fast. Now,
I want you to do this, sister, because here's my thing. Now, this sister, y'all might, she apparently is over in Africa. I want you to hear what she has to say. And she's basically talking about how she's being treated over there. So some of you all said, well, just go back to Africa. Most of us are culturally American. We don't want to go back to Africa. We wouldn't fit in well in Africa. So a lot of Africans are coming over here. But listen to what the sister has to say.
I'd rather go back to America and deal with the racism in America before I sit here in Africa and deal with the bullshit bribery, the bullshit.
Now you need to watch your language, lady. We are family friendly. Somebody type family friendly, but let's keep listening.
Okay. And deal with the bullshit bribery, the bullshit fraud, the bullshit scams, the bullshit too expensive, the bullshit not having no snacks.
Snacks. Somebody type snacks in the chat room. Look, y'all better not laugh. Snacks are important. Okay, she need a Twinkie and Snicker bars. Okay, and her baby Ruth. The sister can't get her snacks that she wants. I'm serious. We having a serious conversation, but snacks are important to some people. If y'all find out who she is, let's put her together a box of snacks and send them to her in Ghana. Okay, let's let her finish. But she said some real serious stuff. Let's keep listening. Snacks.
The bullshit not having no food, the bullshit electricity, the bullshit hot water, the bullshit what's that shit called that's coming down? The bullshit animals, it's scorpions outside the house, it's big ass spiders, it's big ass lizards, colorful lizards you ain't never seen before, all in the fucking room with you, sleeping with you. All the bullshit people trying to scam you when you go outside thinking you rich, so they trying to get more money.
So they try to scam you because they know you're a foundational Black American. That's what that's your treatment that you're gonna get in Africa. Most of y'all don't want to go back. Let's just keep it. If you don't want to go back.
Y'all, for you, I'm really trying to wrap my head.
She trying to tell you this ain't the place for you. Shout out to LTD. Big shout out to LTD. I'm gonna read all my super chats later on, but I wanted to get through this. Now let's keep now. We got a lot of folks saying
Democrats in Oregon just issued House Bill 2995. This bill would create a task force to determine reparations for Black Americans in Oregon. This task force is charged.
Now I want to know what Caribbean island his family is from. Y'all keep listening, or what African country his people are from. Let's keep listening.
With studying and developing proposals for both financial and non-financial reparations for Oregonians of African American descent. Additionally, it aims to devise methods for educating the public about its findings and to recommend appropriate remedies based on these findings. The task force will comprise of 15 members appointed by the President of the Senate, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Governor. Its duties include identifying governmental actions that have caused harm to African American Oregonians in areas such as enslavement, racial terror, political disenfranchisement, housing segregation, education inequality, environmental racism, and the wealth gap. So as of today, this has not been passed. It's currently under consideration. Click that follow button to stay up to date.
Let's keep listening. Let's keep listening. So this is a subject that a lot of people are dealing with. All right. Shout out to Shara. Thank you.
Reparations to African Americans, but the president who replaced Lincoln didn't pay them out. And let's not forget that after slavery.
So we were owed reparations, but the president who came after Lincoln was assassinated, he opted. Said, "Nah, we're not going to do it." Okay. That was part of the compromise that he signed with the southern states.
They were released into a hostile society that would continue to marginalize them. They were kept undereducated and underemployed for centuries to come. After Pearl Harbor had been bombed, Japanese Americans were kept in concentration camps. While they were provided with homes and other amenities such as schools for their children, their detainment was unjust and violated their civil rights. But reparations for Japanese Americans is a separate issue. What you may not know is that Japanese Americans have been paid reparations through the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which compensated those who were interned and their families. While the amount of compensation may have not been sufficient to fully rectify the harm caused by internment, it was a step towards acknowledging wrongdoing and making a
It seems like everybody's able to get reparations but black people. Notice that Germany has to pay the Jewish people black reparations, but we're not trying to get reparations from those African countries. Why is it the foundational black Americans don't have the stomach for that? The Germans have to pay Jewish people reparations, okay, for what they did. But why is it that we don't want reparations from these African? I'm gonna talk about it. We got a long night tonight. Y'all better get your little pamphlets ready. We gonna be doing some work. All right, keep listening.
The question of why Japanese Americans weren't paid reparations but African Americans might is disingenuous, as it only.
Let's keep listening.
And this is the problem I have. The governor of Washington gives 120,000. Starts a reparation program. He gives $120,000 of taxpayer money. This is stuff the taxpayer
money. Keep listening.
For. Why?
Now listen to this black. I mean, look, this is what we're dealing with, right? You got black people. No, we don't want to take the white man's money. Okay, that's cool, brother. Go ahead.
Americans are paying for this, right? But the funny thing is, y'all, that Washington was not even a slave state. So that means all those black people that are from that area never experienced slavery. The white people there are paying for something they had nothing to do with. This is why I have a problem, because the black community, some of us are ignorant.
He talking about the black community like he's not part of the black community. Sir, you are very black. So you black. I got a tan, okay? But you still blacker than me, okay? So you saying you not part of the black community is like Donald Trump talk about the white community. He is part of the white community, okay? People are looking at you like sideways, okay? But let's keep listening.
We don't have ability to comprehend this.
Speak for yourself, sir. I can comprehend plenty.
246 years. There should immediately be an executive order for the next 246 years that black people don't got to pay no taxes. There is a home ownership grant given.
If there was an executive order saying black people don't have to pay no tax, everybody would be black. Let's keep listening.
And education, higher education should be free for black people, okay? This is the greatest, most fair plan.
What about the black people that don't want education like that? They don't want higher education. What about them? What about the ones that want to be electricians and plumbers? How about we let the people who want, let's file some lawsuits, and the people who really want it can hire a lawyer and go out and get it. All right, let's keep listening.
To level the playing field. Because the three ways that black people were affected the most because of, like, from slavery.
Shout out to Yaya.
Poverty, the wealth gaps. We literally gave free labor. Ownership, home ownership, redlining, discrimination in the bank system.
So we all talking about the same stuff.
And education, literally weren't allowed to go. So it makes all the sense to repair the harm that you caused. And I'm not talking about
we just want our money. How about
America?
I know, baby. How about we just want our money? I don't need a scholarship. Give me a check. Okay, that's what my people want. My people want a check. All right, you can go on with your pretty privilege somewhere else. Let's keep listening.
We no longer go by African American. We can't be two nations at one time. We just American. We the only Americans. Even white people not American. African people can't be African and American because since the 14th Amendment, that was only supposed to be for the descendants of so-called slaves, the POWs, which is us. You feel me?
So see, here's the thing, and I know the brother is trying to get his words out, but until you have an actual coherent message, it just still throws confusion. We are foundational Black Americans. I like the term invented by Brother Tariq Nasheed because it keeps the Black American part that we've become used to, and it just adds foundational, that adjective on. So it doesn't really change the word. It just becomes more concise. But let's continue listening to this, brother. I want you to hear this. This is important.
A lot of research. Mind you, You know, I'm from there. I was born in Africa. I was born in West Africa, where they came and they took my people and made them slaves and to the
my people.
You know, that whole process.
Notice how Africans, when they come to this country, they say my people because it puts them in line with foundation. It allows them to be lined up with foundational Black Americans, and it gives them somewhat a cover. Okay. And I understand strategically why you would do that, because you need the cover provided to you by foundational Black Americans. But do you really feel like we the same people? Because it seemed to me like, you know, when you do something good, the flags come out and you discard it. When something bad has happened, you let that be some Black people did. Shout out to LTD. Let's
process. Yeah. But I didn't know much about slavery till I came to America. So why they didn't teach me this in the 3rd grade or 4th grade
in Africa?
So y'all know I literally been to Africa, right? And when I was in Africa, like exactly what she's saying, like nobody knew about the whole slave story. I even met an African who was very intelligent and told me that we're not from there. We're from America. That's why we look so different. That's why we have different cultures. And that's why wherever I go, they call me, oh, American girl. Oh, American girl.
So in other words, the sister's telling you that these people don't see us as the same people. So why do y'all have such an affinity for Africans? And why do you even maintain this affinity for Africans? Why you can't see them for how they see you? We're not the same people. This is what they're saying. Different culture, different language. We look different. We might be of African descent, but hell, everybody's of African descent at this point. Just think about it. Let's keep listening.
Oh, we love American girls. Nobody thought I was African. Nobody said I was back home. They all said, why was I even there? Why did I come? I wanted to experience a different culture, a different nationality, and I wanted to learn the truth from the horse's mouth. But she's absolutely correct. When you go to Africa, they don't even know about the Atlantic slave trade. They talk about how they were enslaved and they had their own slavery that they went through being enslaved by Europeans, hence why they speak European languages, but they have no recollection of us being taken from Africa to America. Wake up and love you.
Keep listening.
If you look on a timeline, the history of the United States is still fairly brief, and slavery was abolished a mere 155 years ago. It wasn't just the White House that was built using slave labor, by the way. The building that serves as our country's political center, the United States Capitol, was built and rebuilt using slave labor after its sacking in the War of 1812. Although most northern states had abolished slavery by 1804, it's had its fair share of symbols erected using slave labor. If you're familiar with the Trinity Church in New York's financial district, you may not know that the clergy rented enslaved people to build its iconic spires, as well as the wall that used to snake down what we now know as Wall Street.
So the church was even using Black people as slaves. This is what I want you to understand. This is how much we were exploited as people. But, you know, that's a conversation for another day. But this is something, they know that the debt is being paid. All right. But nobody is approaching this the right way. Let's go ahead and get this ball rolling by getting this Slave Act that I propose going. But let's keep listening.
Many of our forefathers were enslavers. Thomas Jefferson's entire property in Charlottesville, Virginia, Monticello, was built and run by enslaved people. Enslaved people also helped build our intellectual centers. Georgetown University, one of the country's oldest colleges, built most of its campuses after the sale of 272 enslaved people in the 1830s. Many schools with storied histories were built in part by enslaved people, including Harvard University's Law School and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. That school's campus was maintained by slave labor until its abolishment in 1865. Poor record keeping and indifference by early historians makes it nearly impossible to know every contribution made to these buildings, but there's no doubt about how they got built.
Let's keep listening. Y'all still with me? You're learning something.
California's Reparations Task Force is speaking out after state lawmakers blocked 2 reparations-related proposals.
Another failed reparations legislation. Another failed one in some state, some random state somewhere. We need to get it all. We need one big, beautiful bill, just like Donald Trump says. Let's keep going.
California Legislative Black Caucus decided to withhold those bills from moving forward. That led to a big protest at the Capitol over the weekend, as you see here. That's what the video is that you're watching right now. KCRA3 Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala spoke with the reparations leader.
Yeah, so Ashley, what does she have to say about how this whole session ended over the weekend?
And Golston and Lisa, Camila Moore was the chairwoman of California's Historic Reparations Task Force. That group wrapped up its work last year after spending years studying the effects of slavery, racial discrimination, and its...
So they spent years studying the effects of slavery and all that and still denied the bill. We don't need any more studies. Enough studies have been done. Let's keep listening.
Impact on Black Californians. She says she felt betrayed by the Black Caucus after it decided to block 2 bills she says were fundamental for reparations.
And I guarantee you that Black Caucus is filled up with people who are not foundational Black Americans. All right, keep that in mind. There's no loyalty there. Keep listening.
Emotions still high after this scene at the state capitol over the weekend.
It's Black people stopping their own people from getting their reparations.
You see, the problem is the brother is talking about his own people. Those people, look, even the foundational Black Americans, their loyalties are conflicted. They Pan-Africans. You see what I mean? They have Caribbeans in their family and whatnot. And they have Africans in their family. They're biased. All right? So you're going to have to grow some backbone and start getting what you want. Okay? Let's keep listening.
Reparations supporters frustrated by the Legislative Black Caucus's last-minute decision to block votes in the Assembly on proposals that would establish a state agency and state fund for reparations. The Black Caucus divided, with some saying they were afraid of the governor's veto, while the caucus leader, Assemblymember Lori Wilson, claimed the bills did not have the votes.
Well, of course, that's what they're going to claim. Let's keep listening.
300K. 40 acres and a fucking mule.
Like I said before, Black people are owed $300K each. Also, we deserve the 40 acres as well. I didn't come up with that number. Some people at a college, I forgot who came up with it. It was like some study, not study, it's like some calculation they did. They calculated like 24 hours. This was like in 2022, I think.
All over the place.
What the fuck are you gonna do with 40 acres and a mule? You're just gonna grow weed on the 40 acres and then trick out.
See, these are the type of Black people. See how generative and regressive the conversation gets when you allow something as complicated as reparative justice to be part of the public discourse without any direction. You're dealing with folk like this. This is a clown to this. This is clown food to this person. And he is Black, but is he foundational Black American? You see, that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Where's your loyalty lie?
Out the mule. That's all you're gonna do. This is the level of entitledness that Black people have. This is
the level of entitlements that Black people have, brother. You see what I'm saying? This is what happens when you open the conversation up for everybody to have it.
Owe us something. They owe us this. Nobody owes us a single fucking thing. Everything that we have, we
watch your foul mouth language. That's what you need to do. Watch your language, but keep going.
Work for. And there's still more work that needs to be done. All these people are doing.
Work hard. Keep
is
going.
Fucking begging. Black.
Now he sounds just like these Africans who come from that. Say we begging. That's what they say about us all the time.
People in this country have worked very hard to get to the standard that they have. We overcame Jim Crow. We overcame slavery. And even at this time now, with all the problems that we have, we still have a significant amount of wealth and influence in this country and respect from people in this country. But begging Blacks like this want to sit back and bring down that respect. People like.
That's why we're not begging anything. Put your act in law, and we'll go out and sue, and we'll take what's out. Somebody type "take it" in the chat room. We're not begging. We're gonna take it at this point. We're gonna take you to the courthouse and take you to the jury and get our judgment and take our money.
Keep listening. Are just gonna waste the money anyway. Spend it in dumbass places.
How do you know that, sir? What makes you think somebody who spent all the time litigating the case, doing the research, is gonna waste it? What makes you think that? Why are you so judgmental towards my people? Why is it that you are so filled with self-hate that you would say something that's asinine and is when my people are left alone, we build tremendously. We build communities, we build churches, we build hospitals, we build bus lines, we build universities, we build communities. You don't even know my people. So who are you to judge my people and what my people do? Let's get this young man up out of here and move on to somebody else who perhaps has a little bit more sense. Praise God. Hit the number 1 button.
From Tampa, Florida, put them on notice about our money.
Just like with this police review board they just came up with. No black person care about that. We tried it and it didn't work. No black person care about them speed bumps and them parks and recreation. They got old people coming out here talking about parks and recreation. What black people care about is our reparations. This city owe us, each and every black person in the city of Tampa, at least $3 million in reparations. And that's what's important. All this nonsense y'all talk about, all this nonsense, homelessness and all this other garbage y'all talk about, police violence and all this stuff, don't nobody care about that. Don't nobody real care about that. We care about our reparations. And we have to put white people on notice that we want our reparations, that our foreparents and us, we...
And see, and look, I appreciate what the brother's saying, but we speak boldly about what the white man did. But what about what our so-called African brothers and sisters did and their participation in the slave trade? What about them? And see, when you start talking about slave ownership in the United States, let me say something real candid to you. Who owned slaves in the United States? Was it just white people that owned slaves in the United States? Was it just white people that owned slaves in the United States? Somebody type 5 civilized tribes in the chat room. The 5 civilized tribes in the chat room. The 5 civilized tribes in the chat room own slaves. That's those Native Americans that you all love to claim. The 5 civilized tribes fought on behalf of the South against the North because they wanted to hold on to their slaves. I want you to think about that. Now let's get a little dirtier. If we start talking about slavery in the United States and who owns slaves, did you know that black people own slaves? Did they tell you that at your African American historical class? Did they say, oh, no, it was just black people buying their own relatives? I got the books. It was a lot of black people that bought their own relatives and then turned around and sold their relatives, wives, husbands, right back into slavery. Might have been your wife, but it was a slave first. So are we going to exclude everybody if we sued here in the United States? Everybody who's responsible for slavery, we definitely got to go ahead and file that lawsuit against the Coshada Indian tribe. We get some of that casino money, right? What about the black people that own slaves? One of the most notorious slave owners in South Carolina owned hundreds of slaves and was cruel to slaves, was a black man. So we're going to sue his defenders. You see how nasty it gets when you're trying to sort that out, as opposed to picking the 4 or 5 successor states, Nigeria, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Senegal, the Congo, 6, and suing them and making them responsible as successor states. That's a nice, clean lawsuit. Somebody type clean in the chat room. We know where they are. We know what assets they have, and they're easy to find. And most of you all with a simple DNA test can get on the path and track yourselves and your heritage right back to those 6 countries, regions that I just talked about. Nice and clean, baby. Because otherwise, when you start saying we're going to sue this one and that, man, you're going to end up suing some of your damn relatives. I'm telling you the truth. You don't have to like it. I've done the research. I've done the research already. I'm already telling you what you're going to come up with. It's a dirty, nasty game. Half of you all are going to quickly realize that you are descendants of the actual slave owners. So you're going to sue yourself? I'm just asking. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm trying to give you a nice, clean way forward, baby. Otherwise, it's just going to get messy and litigious. Shout out to LTD. Now, let's keep listening to what the folk have to say, because the people have a lot to say about slavery. And as long as we keep talking about it, it's not going anywhere.
on reparations for black people.
The national debate over reparations for slavery. Reparations. Financial restitution for black residents. Tonight,
In 2020, they became the first city in the South to approve that kind of plan. And organizers have been hard at work ever since, which has gotten me thinking a lot about what it might mean for a city to set things right, and in turn build stronger communities. The organizers in Asheville aren't just focused on chattel slavery, but also on the decades of government-backed harms that followed slavery.
Reconstruction, Jim Crow, the Civil Rights era, urban renewal, redlining, all these different things that have happened that are out there.
In fact, as they work through the details of their reparations package,
it's too messy, brother. I'm telling you, brothers, right now, it's too messy. Because you're gonna have Mexicans saying, "Well, we were discriminated against." You're gonna have Africans from the Caribbean. We were discriminated against too. It's just gonna get messy. You give standing to so many different people to file a lawsuit. It's messy, and it'll never get litigated. It would take years, and then it might end up getting dismissed. I'm giving you a nice, clean shot, a nice, clean route to it. It's nice and clean, baby, to get your money. Okay? Restorative justice for foundational Black Americans who can trace their lineage to a time period before the Emancipation Proclamation, who are descendants of African American slavery and of African descent, who were brought to this country after 1808, which was illegal at the time. It's nice and clean. You got too much. You have so much culpability in there. You can put that together. That's easy. Okay. What these folk, this is why it's not going anywhere. Okay. I'm just saying, this is why it's not going anywhere. You got the wrong people in charge.
Passage. They've shown us every plantation with cotton.
Now, I want you to listen to this. Somebody type breeding plantations. Somebody type breeding farms. There's so many Black people who say, well, how do we get all those Black people over here? The way we got them over here, they had a certain amount, and then they bred us into existence. We went from 400,000 to 4 million, from 1808 to 1860. We went from 400,000 to 4 million. Because of breeding farms. And this brother talks about, people don't want to talk about this. Keep listening.
On it. You know what plantation they've never shown us, Abby? The most prominent ones. The ones that were most profitable. The breeding plantations. Why don't you want to show us those? You know why? Because after the research that I did for this album, you realize that the moment that a girl menstruated, she was put in a stable where a horse would be, and forcibly mated, forcibly raped by a male of the slave master's choice. And when she had children, they weren't called children, they were called a litter of pups. The punishment for raping or killing a person in medieval Spain is gelding. Gelding is when you take hot pincers and you take a man's balls and dick off root and stem. Killing a person, law of the Bible. Right? Medieval Spain, super religious. You killed a man, he should be killed. Why were indigenous and Black people categorized as subhuman? So under the law, you would not be punished for the things that you did to us. That's why. You used to be proud, right?
So the brother's bringing up a good point. Okay. Basically, he's saying the things that happened to us during slavery were legal. So how do you punish somebody for something, use the legal system to punish somebody for something that wasn't illegal at the time? You understand what I'm saying? That's messy. Now you got to say, well, it was immoral, but it wasn't legal. If we just punish people for everything that they did 200 years ago that was immoral, you bring up, abuse against spouse, abuse against children. It just opens a floodgate for litigation, and that's why this is not going anywhere. That's why your reparations argument is not going anywhere. So many people are stuck on emotions as opposed to using intelligence to get to an end. Now, I want to show you all something. Okay, this is another image. We're gonna learn something. This is the map of the United States. Back during that time period. I want you all to see something, okay? This is what the United States looked like in 1776. How are you getting reparations from California? And California was the property of a whole nother country at the time. You had New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland. You had Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And you have Florida as a territory. How are you going to get reparations from these other? They're playing with you. They just goofy playing with you. They got you on a wild goose chase. You see, but we know what, this is what I want y'all to understand. These other places, Texas was Mexico at the time. You know what I mean? Oklahoma was Mexico, Spain. These were not part of the United States at the time. So stop letting these people play with you. Okay, fam?
Used to be proud, white America, of rape and murder. Used to be proud of colonization. Used to, wow, that made us tough.
And see,
And
again, this is an emotional conversation, and I'm going to disagree with them. America always knew that slavery was wrong. They knew it was unjust. That's why they had to categorize us as less than human so that they can justify. They had to get the Pope and the saints to say, oh, yeah, black people are beasts. So what you do to them is not human. If they're not humans, it's not a crime against God. These are not God's children. These are animals. They have no souls. They feel less pain. So that's inaccurate. All this emotionalism, all this sensationalism. This is why you can't have people who are not logical litigators and lawyers dealing with what was and what was not legal at the time. But I appreciate what the brothers are saying, but you know,
much respect to all the brothers and sisters here in the Bay Area. First of all, I want to make 3 quick points about reparations and then let our other brothers and sisters speak. First thing.
And for you all who don't know, foundational Black American, that term was coined by the good brother Tariq Nasheed. So shout out to him. I've been using it even on air broadcasts, and I go on national TV for several years now. This brother should receive credit for using that term, foundational Black American. I know there are other ones, but that is, you know, I like foundational Black American because it includes what we already know, Black American, and we just put foundation on, so it keeps it as it is. We went from colored to Negro to Black American to African American. I like foundational Black American. Okay, that's why I use it. But this is a brilliant brother. If you don't know who Tariq Nasheed is, just Google him, check his movies out, man. I have all of his movies. Keep listening.
We have to understand we have to focus and keep the emphasis on it being lineage-based.
Yes, sir.
The problem is we see a lot of trick bag language being mixed into it, where it opens the floor for other groups to come in and undermine us.
Yep.
Reparations in the form of lineage-based compensation is not a compensation for racism. Let's be very clear. If we open the door to racism, Hispanics can come in, Asians can come in, Middle Eastern people can come in. It will become affirmative action again, where we are left holding the crumbs and everybody else is holding the cake. So we have to focus on the lineage-based reparations.
Yes, sir.
Especially the agreement that our foundational Black American lineage accrued out here in California. In California, this was a state that allowed slavery. People say that this wasn't a slave state. There was informal slavery here. The only reason they made it a technicality to make slavery illegal in California, they didn't want the white wealthy slave owners back east coming here getting all the prime real estate. They had slavery out here. Our foundational Black American brothers and sisters and our ancestors were out here working enslaved. San Bernardino, California was a slave colony. There were slave colonies here around the Bay Area. We couldn't get out of slavery because they made it illegal for Black people to testify against white people. That's
now, just so you guys know, I did include the good brother Tariq Nasheed in my mailings. I find him to be a modern day John Henry Clark when it comes to history, and I appreciate his works. So I did definitely wanted to send the brother a copy of what I'm doing over here. Okay, so in fact, I'll even share that letter with you all. Not only did I send it to the good brother Tariq Nasheed, but also sent it to several other prominent historians. I sent one to my good friend, Dr. Hassan Johnson. I'm gonna try to make this a little bigger so you all can see. I sent a letter to Dr. Hassan Johnson. You guys know him. He's on YouTube. And this is the letter I sent to the good Dr. Hassan Johnson. And as I said, I also sent a letter to Professor Henry Louis Gates Jr., Dr. Gerald Horn, and of course, Brother Tariq Nasheed. And I thanked him for his hard work. And I sent him a copy of the letter that I sent let me know if you can hear me. Oh goodness. Okay. Yeah. So I included Brother Tariq Nasheed in my mailings because we are going to need the historians. I'm not a historian. I'm a lawyer. Okay. But I did send it to Brother Tariq Nasheed, and I thanked him for his work. I appeared at his, I acknowledge him as the originator of the term Foundational Black American. And I actually spoke at the Foundational Black American Expo in 2023 upon his invitation. And it was along with a panel of lawyers, and we talked about know your rights. And I just basically highlighted, so I have great respect for the brother, man. I appreciate what he's doing. He's an inspiration to so many. So you guys make sure you patronize his business and support the things that he does. I appreciate what he's done. We'll let the brother finish speaking and we'll move on.
They bagged us up into slavery here. We have to be compensated for that. The second thing is we can't include all of these other groups with our reparations package. We hear a lot of Black and Native American. We hear a lot of Black and brown. That won't work either. All of these other groups, they've been compensated. Every single group besides Foundational Black Americans has been compensated. White slave owners were compensated.
They were.
White immigrants in the 1800s were compensated with the Homestead Act. Okay.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you so much.
They just cut the brother off, man. But shout out to Brother Tariq Nasheed. Now, again, so this is a conversation that's being spoken about.
To give $1 billion to help Black Americans economically and politically, and the U.S. government denied that gift. A lot of you might already know this story, but it was new information to me, so I'm assuming some.
So I believe this was Libya under Muammar Gaddafi tried to give Black Americans $1 billion, and they said no. Isn't that something? Just think about that. They don't even want us to be helped. They don't want to uplift us, brothers and sisters. So we're going to have to do it ourselves. All right, just like our ancestors do. Just because they don't want us to do it doesn't mean we can't do it. And we can't get it done with our collective might and wisdom and strength and endurance. Keep listening.
Economically and politically, and the U.S. government denied that gift. A lot of you might already know this story, but it was new information to me, so I'm assuming some people don't know about this history, and it's important that we talk about it. According to LA Times, the federal government of the U.S. denied the Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan permission to accept a promised $1 billion gift from Libya to help Black Americans economically and politically. According to the same report, Farrakhan applied to the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control, asking
back in 1996. I remember him talking about that. This was in the wake of the Million Man March. Black folks was making a lot of noise. I attended the Million Man March and the one that came up after that 20 years later, but keep listening.
He be granted an exemption from the sanctions to permit acceptance of $1 billion pledged by Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi during a visit Farrakhan made to Libya. The Treasury Department denied that request in a message to Farrakhan's lawyers in Chicago, asserting the continuing need of the United States to enforce its policy of isolating Libya. Denying $1 billion, which is a gift meant for Black Americans from an African country, is insane. But it did happen. And according to U.S. spokesman then, Glenn Davis, he said, quote, obviously Gaddafi has an interest in gaining a foothold here in the U.S. in some fashion. And of course, that kind of talk is not something that...
They don't want us to help ourselves.
It's not a handout. It's not a gift.
It is what was promised. It's what is owed, and it's something that is 160 years overdue to African Americans who built this country.
The state of California is now one step closer to making good on that promise.
And you
to
see what
repay
happened with
Black
that.
Californians harmed by the legacy of slavery and anti-Black policies in the century and a half since emancipation. The Legislative Black Caucus is announcing a package of more than a dozen reparations bills, the first step in making Black Californians whole.
I mean, I'm hoping that we'll all be successful. I'm realistic enough to know that there's going to be some setbacks.
State Senator Stephen Bradford of Southern California is one of the Legislative Black Caucus members behind the reparations.
We all know what happened. They turned their backs on it. Let's keep listening. Shout out to
Piece of the interview that Byron Donalds did when he was being interviewed on the Breakfast Club.
Byron Donalds is a Republican that they want us to like. Now, I want you guys to remember, I tell y'all all the time, vote your interests. Okay, vote your interests. I'm not stuck on the Democratic plantation, and I'm certainly not stuck on the Republican plantation. I specifically voted for Donald Trump this time because it was my interest to do that. All right, now Donald, what's his man named? Donald Robertson, the little brother married to a white woman from Florida.
So I just seen a piece of the interview that Byron Donalds did when he was being interviewed on
Byron Donalds. I want you to understand what this man, he's against reparations. Where do you think he's from? Do you think he's foundational Black American? This young lady is going to spill the beans.
The Breakfast Club talking about the reason why he is against reparations is because he is the son of a Jamaican father and a Panamanian mother. And this reasoning here is why we want y'all to help out our politics. Don't continue to black us and try to manipulate.
Just because they're Black doesn't mean they're foundational Black American. That's why we got to delineate.
Us or gaslight us into thinking that it is xenophobic to not want to be represented by somebody that is not us. And no other group of people do y'all try to push this. And no other group of people do y'all want anybody but Asians represent Asians, Hispanics represent Hispanics. Y'all know exactly what y'all are doing. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah. Anything that does not benefit y'all amongst us, y'all hinder.
They want they come to our country and tell us what we can't have in our own country. I want you to think about that. Keep listening.
To us.
Talk to them, us. Speak to them.
To us.
To us.
You feel what I'm saying? You could always move back home.
Go home.
And fight your government.
Yes. That's
for what is owed to your people.
Go back to
and your lineage. But y'all will never plan on moving back. This y'all got in cahoots about. Y'all never going to leave. Therefore, anything that y'all can't benefit from or weasel y'all way into, y'all want to hinder. Y'all want to black us. You feel what I'm saying?
They do. Black
you feel what the fuck I'm saying?
I do. Watch your language, but I feel you.
It's mighty funny how y'all like to play stupid conveniently. Nobody knows what a real true Black American is. Nobody knows what a foundational Black American is. Nobody knows what this lineage-based cult is. But it's mighty funny. The moment that y'all enter our politics, y'all smarten the fuck up instantly. Y'all understand instantly who we are, what you cannot benefit from, and what you can. And as long as we say skin is skin, y'all can benefit and y'all are in. Y'all understand this completely once y'all into politics. How the hell that work? How the hell y'all dumping in a box of rocks until y'all enter some shit that can affect us? How the hell that work? Yes. Y'all represent immigrants.
You do. They do.
Immigrants.
They immigrants.
Okay. And only in Hispanic politics.
Let me just tell you something. Look, brothers and sisters, I tell you this, and I've been telling you this for a minute. We are better together. To my Black brothers and sisters, to my foundational Black American brothers and sisters, and to all the Africans and Caribbeans who are down with us in a real way, okay? Borrowing something from my young friend, Aaron Sloan. If you're down with us in a real way, look, we are better together, especially Black men and Black women. Us coming together as Black men and Black women is what our ancestors want. It is, you ain't got to love each other like that. I know y'all want to talk about each other right now. I know we in the middle of a gender war. I know that, okay? I know it's plenty of ammo to be thrown back and forth, but we're so much better together. We get so much more done. That ladies, that big head man, that big head ex-boyfriend of yours, look, if he's down with reparations, go on, support him on that. We're so much better together. It's fun fighting with each other. I know we love to, because can't nobody cap on each other like we do. And when I say cap, I don't mean lie. I'm talking about roasting, bagging, I don't know what shoot joining, whatever you call, whatever part of the country you from. We're so much better together. Now, I've said this gender war is over, not because we have run out of things to say to each other, but because at this particular time, and I told you guys this very early on, we are entering into a racially charged climate. That's why when a little boy is jumped in Dallas and defends himself with what seemed to have been a cleat sharpener, he's made out to be a villain. That's when a white woman who flips the bird off at a little black boy who allegedly took her son's diaper bag is able to get $500,000 overnight. And when she called him the N-word, we are living in a racially charged environment. We don't have time to fight each other right now, brothers and sisters. This is not that time. This is not playtime. Okay, it's a very serious time. We laughed and we told you so to the Latinos when they voted for Trump, but we're living in a different time now. This white man is angry because he feels like he's losing his country. Now, the elite don't care. They want to see problems. They don't like Donald Trump because Donald Trump is in the way. And so what's the best thing to do? Let's stir up some racial animosity and get Americans at each other's throat, and then we can turn around and blame the chaos on Donald Trump and get rid of that whole line or whatever the hell he's trying to do, because he's in the way. Trump is not legitimately, to me, a Republican or a Democrat. He's a nationalist. He kind of just doing what he wants to do. He's his own person. I'm trying to tell you, we're living in a racially charged time. Don't fall for it. They're trying to bait black people into saying something. They're trying to bait black people into fighting because they know that will cause for chaos. That's why it's time for y'all to sit home. We are hibernating, we are resting, and we're coming together with each other, and we need to chill out. All you brothers and sisters, I know you've made your pages on beefing with brothers. I know it's fun. I know you still mad at your mama. Ladies, you still mad at your daddy for not being there, so you take it out on every other black man you see. Same thing with the brothers. You take it out on every sister you see because she remind you of your mom and the disrespect. You angry. But this ain't that time. We got to set that aside right now. We can get back to arguing with each other in about 30 or 40 years when this is over. But if we want to see the next 30 or 40 years, if we want to be around for the next 30 or 40 years, it's time to chill out on the gender warring, because it's a matter of life and death right now. Now I'm gonna digress and I'm gonna let my sister get back. But remember what I told you, and I hope I don't have to repeat myself. Let's keep listening.
Hispanics are represented by Hispanics. In Asian politics, Asians are represented by Asians. And yet the Black Caucus is filled up with immigrant children who are against anything for foundational Black Americans that they can't benefit from.
No, you're right. Yes, ma'am. Speak on it. And we let them in because black is black, right? And they act a fool when we try to exclude them. So we just...
Y'all ain't nothing but a new and improved version of Christopher Columbus.
They are nocturnal animals that forage through the garbage at night. That's what their new version of. Nocturnal, omnivorous animals that forage through the garbage. They are that. Okay? And they're doing their thing.
Y'all can try to flip this either way you want to, any way you want to. But anybody who can move to a different country and actively participate in hindering a group of people,
that been there.
That's colonization, my brother. Oh, yeah. No matter which way you put it.
Tell them, baby girl. I told y'all. Shout out to her. Now, look, we've seen enough reparations videos for you all to know that this is something that's on the minds of foundational Black Americans. So what I want to do is go ahead and land this plane. All right. I'm going to go over some points and I want to talk to y'all about again. Okay, family. Look, one of the strongest contradictions I see in this space All right. And if you learn something, I should earn something. I ain't begging. I ain't no beggar. But if you learn something, I should earn something, and I would prefer it to be spread around. I don't want one person just contributing. I shouldn't say that. Okay. I do appreciate all the contributions and whatnot, but let's spread it around. We got almost 1,000 people in here tonight. So, and if you learn something, I should earn something. Nevertheless, in this space, we got people out here who are foundational Black Americans. And we say it loud and proud. We want reparations. And I agree. We deserve them. We all do. But then when the conversation shifts to African nations being held accountable for their role in the slave trade, suddenly those same voices start saying, whoa, wait, not like that. Well, let me speak to you as an attorney, and not just an attorney, but a practicing litigator, a Hall of Fame attorney, so says the Southern University Law Center, with over 25 years of experience fighting this fight in the courts of these United States. See, let me explain something to you. Under the ethical rules that govern my profession, it's true. The client decides, you get to decide the goal. But how we get there, that's my call as an attorney. That's the practice of law. In any complex civil case, especially when there's multiple defendants, we understand a very simple principle. It doesn't matter which defendant writes the check, as long as the client is made whole. You want justice, you want compensation for 400 years of forced labor, stolen heritage, and generational trauma, then let's go where the law takes us, to the parties that are responsible. And in the case of the transatlantic slave trade, let's stop pretending that this was just a European crime, because it wasn't. Now, let me break this down. There were multiple defendants involved in this global enterprise, and it included European nations: Portugal, Spain, Britain, France, Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden. There were a lot of international corporations involved in it: the Royal African Company of the UK, the Dutch West India Company, the Portuguese, they call it the Companhia General Gratia para Marhawa. I can't say the word, but they were involved. Lloyd's of London, still around. It's a marine insurance company. They insured the slave ships. Barclays Bank, right? They had financial ties to slavery profits. Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan Chase, they all benefited from slavery and the related commerce. And critically, you had African kingdoms and states that were involved. The Kingdom of Dahomey, which is modern day Benin, the Ashanti Empire, which is modern day Ghana, the Oyo Empire, which is Nigeria, the Congo Kingdom, which is Angola, Congo, the Kingdom of Longo, which is the Congo coast. And these African kingdoms weren't just innocent bystanders. They were, look, they weren't kidnapped, okay? They were active participants. They profited by selling their neighbors to European traders. So here's the logic. If we're serious about restorative justice, then we start at the root of the problem. Because if there are no sellers, family, there could have been no buyers. And see, that's not a theory. That's called causation. And in the law, causation is everything. Now look, if those African nations feel that they were manipulated or used by Europeans, that's fine. They can file what is called a cross claim. They can file third-party claims. They can file contribution claims against those European banks and shipping companies, whoever they believe shares the fault. That's their business. But see, my duty as a legal advocate for foundational Black Americans is not to protect the feelings or the geopolitical image of Africa. It's to make my clients, in this case, my people, whole. Just like any civil case, if a drunk driver hits your car and it turns out the car manufacturer made faulty brakes, The drunk driver can sue the manufacturer later. But first, we sue the one closest to the act. And in this case, African nations are the source of the sale. They put human beings on the block. They took the payments. They helped destroy millions of lives, including the lives of their own cousins, brothers, and neighbors. So don't tell me we want justice if you're not ready to go all the way back to the beginning. Reparations can't be about emotion, family. It must be about responsibility. And legal responsibility starts at the origin of the injury. My job is simple. Follow the facts. Follow the law and make the foundational Black Americans whole again. No apologies, no exceptions. See, we're having a real conversation today. See, a lot of us foundational Black Americans have spent years romanticizing Africa. Some of y'all had little African medallions on. Some of y'all still refer to Africa as the motherland, the homeland. We look at the continent like it's some kind of ancestral utopia. We adopt African names and wear kente cloth and speak about the motherland with mythical reverence. But here's the cold, hard truth. Africa was not just the victim of the transatlantic slave trade, it was a co-conspirator. Now, I know some people are clutching your chest right now. They'll say, oh, but Dennis, slavery in Africa was different. They'll say they didn't know what was happening in America. And the worst one, you can't blame modern African countries because they didn't even exist back then. Well, let's deal with that step by step. So the transatlantic slave trade lasted nearly 500 years. But the sub-Saharan slave trade, where they were taking Africans across the Sahara Desert by Arab traders, that lasted 1,600 years before that. It was 1,600 years it was around. So you mean to tell me, a thinking man, that for over a millennium and a half of selling their own people, these African elites didn't know what they were doing? Let me educate you. There were African slaves who freed themselves, rose to power, and then turned right back around and sold others into slavery. That's not ignorance, that's strategy. That's full participation. These weren't illiterate tribesmen being manipulated by the white man. We're talking about kings and generals and merchants, people like King Gizo of Dahomey, who made his kingdom's economy dependent on slave raiding and warfare. What about King Alfonso I of the Congo, who corresponded in fluent Portuguese with the king of Portugal, begging for more priests and guns while still participating in the slave trade? What about the Ashanti rulers who traded enslaved people for muskets, brandy, and textiles and operated with the full awareness of the Atlantic system? Some of these men had Portuguese last names. I'm talking about the kings. They dressed in European fashion and they sent their children to be educated in Catholic schools in Lisbon. They knew exactly what they were doing in the so-called New World. They weren't in the dark. They weren't in a room at the table. They weren't swinging through the trees. They were educated men. They were profiting. Shout out to Gloria Sabry. So when modern day apologists say, well, Ghana didn't exist in 1750, they're right, but that doesn't matter. And let me explain why. As an attorney who drafted this law, I'm gonna tell you how the Successor State Liability Act works. In the foundational Black American Slave Trade Restorative Justice Act of 2025 that I sent to Trump and the 2 Texas senators and all these other intelligent people, and the proposal, I make it very clear. Modern nations can be held accountable as successor states to the historical kingdoms that committed human rights violations. The law uses language and precedent similar to what's found in cases of Nazi-era restitution or JASTA lawsuits against Saudi Arabia. and it defines an African sovereign as any modern nation that succeeded or inherited the territory, government, wealth, or legacy of a historical regime materially involved in the post-1808 transatlantic slave trade. These successor states benefited economically, politically, and socially from the wealth accumulated through the trafficking of our Black bodies. And many continue to preserve national heritage and monuments and traditions rooted in those same empires. It doesn't matter that Benin wasn't called Dahomey anymore. Just like Germany was held accountable for the Nazis, or Turkey for the Ottoman Empire, successor liability applies. This is a standard legal doctrine in international law. Hell, it's a standard legal doctrine in corporations law. And when you look at Section 6 of the proposed legislation, I explicitly waive sovereign immunity for those nations in cases involving violations of human rights, like slavery and forced labor. So for those saying Ghana didn't exist, understand, the kingdom of Ashanti did. The kingdom of Dahomey did. And today's African nations carry the political, geographic, and legal inheritance of those kingdoms. That's the legal basis, and that's how we go forward. So let me be clear. This isn't about hating Africa. This isn't about shame or division. It's about honesty, accountability, and justice. You cannot heal what you refuse to confront. And you can't claim to want reparations if you're willing to go all the way back, if you're not willing to go all the way back to the source. I'm not asking anyone to pick up a sword. I'm telling you to pick up the law and use it. Because this time we're not begging, we're suing. Now, look, you know, in this era of social media and digital echo chambers, there's been a dangerous rise in misinformation, particularly when it comes to the origins of Black people in America. Look, there's a growing trend online of charlatans telling us that every African person in America is actually descended from Native Americans. And that somehow our true lineage is not African, but Comanche or Cherokee or Choctaw, and so on and so forth. Now, while it's true that some Black folks may have Native American ancestry, let's be intellectually honest here. The DNA tests don't lie. The same one that showed you that little big head boy that don't look nothing like you ain't your child also shows you that you are 9 times out of 10 of West African lineage. The genetic data shows clearly that Native Americans were not sub-Saharan Africans. The indigenous peoples of the America had a distinct genetic, cultural, and geographic origin. And while there are fascinating stories like the one of Abu Bakr II, the Malian ruler who allegedly sailed to the New World with 200 ships in the 14th century, these are still largely matters of folklore, not fact. I grew up in the era where people like Dr. Shaka Musa Barashango were challenging the mainstream narrative, and I appreciate the cultural awakening that came from his work. I watched his lectures back in the 1990s. And one that sticks out to me is European holidays in the African Holocaust. He planted seeds of pride, okay? But he never told us to replace fact with fantasy. And here's the fact. The vast majority of Africans are descendants of enslaved Africans forcibly brought to the America during the transatlantic slave trade and bred here in breeding farms. They were shipped all over, from Brazil to Barbados to Louisiana to Lima. In the United States, it wasn't just importation, it was the industrialized reproduction. I spoke about that. Breeding farms, the most important plantations that are never talked about. Breeding farms. Because it was such a despicable process. Breeding farms. So let's talk numbers. In 1808, the transatlantic slave trade was officially banned. And at the time, according to the U.S. Census data, there was approximately 400,000 enslaved people of African descent in this country. So how did it happen? 52 years later, in 1860, just before the Civil War, the number went to 4 million. That's not normal. Unless you take into account slavery ended, but breeding farms went into overdrive. See, that exponential growth didn't happen by accident. It wasn't natural population increase alone. It wasn't because Africans were still being imported in high numbers, although illegal trafficking did persist. And that is precisely what the restorative justice executive order that I wrote and authored, that I've sent to Donald Trump, addresses. But more importantly, back to the point, the increase in population was a result of systematic state-sanctioned breeding farms. Yes, breeding farms. Human beings were forced to reproduce like livestock. This wasn't hidden. It was part of the plantation economy. And it is what has led, or should I say, it was led by some of the most revered figures in American history. Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, operated one of the largest breeding farms in Virginia. It was mechanized, it was calculated, it was cold-blooded. So, and I might have the name wrong, but I know it was many of our founding fathers. But bottom line is, when I talk about why so many African Americans exist today, it's not just because of forced migration. It's because the country manufactured black bodies for labor. And here's the other truth many people don't want to face. The reason your skin is lighter, the reason your hair is a different texture, the reason your features may not resemble those of our sub-Saharan West African ancestors isn't because of some mythical Cherokee grandmother. It's because your ancestors, like mine, were sexually assaulted repeatedly over generations. It's not romantic, it's horrific, but it's real. And I'm gonna tell you the truth. And for many of us, claiming Native American ancestry has become a form of cultural disassociation, a way of escaping the trauma that comes with fully embracing the legacy of slavery. It's easier to say I'm part Indian than to say my great-great-grandmother was raped by a white slave owner. But truth matters, and healing starts with honesty. And let's be clear, according to numerous genetic studies, the average African American has about 22% European DNA. That didn't come from immigration. That came from generational sexual violence. So when we invent these myths about being native, when we replace our actual ancestry with feel-good fantasies, what we really are doing is running away from history. And I get it. It's painful. But denial doesn't bring justice. Only truth does. Only reckoning with the facts gives us the foundation to demand real reparations, not symbolic pity. So my message is this: know who you are, know where you come from, and stop letting YouTube mystics and social media grifters convince you to trade in your real history for a fictional history just because it hurts less. See, because if you don't face the truth, you'll never hold the right people accountable, and you'll never be made whole. Now, for those of you who are already on board, all my people who want their reparations, type reparations in the chat room. For those of you who are already on board, even for those of you who might not, who might need a little bit more convincing, let's talk. We all know that in 1619, the first enslaved Africans were brought to what would become the United States. In 2019, we quietly crossed the 400-year mark. But for centuries of generational suffering and forced labor, racial terrorism, and systematic exclusion, we crossed that mark. That was supposed to be a moment of reflection, of healing. And yes, some African nations like Ghana extended symbolic gestures, and they invited us to the year of return home. Remember that? But let's be honest. Many of you tried to go home and you found yourselves buried in bureaucracy. You had to pay $400 for a visa. You had to fill out all this paperwork and you dealt with all these empty gestures. And if I didn't know any better, I'd say some of these countries didn't really want us there in the first place. So why is it so hard for foundational Black Americans to reconnect with Africa? Because, see, the truth be told, many people on the continent don't know how we got here. They don't study the transatlantic slave trade. They don't give a damn about the transatlantic slave trade. It's not central to their national history. Many don't know that we were ripped away from their shores. And here's the kicker. They don't care and they don't want to know, because if they did, they'd have to face their culpability in it. From the sub-Saharan African slave trade, where Blacks, Africans were sent east, to the transatlantic slave trade, where we had to cross the Ethiopian Sea or the Atlantic Ocean. Now, of course, you have some educated Africans, they do know. And many of their leaders have even issued apologies, but apologies without policy, without open arms, without legal acknowledgement are just words. There's been no pathway to citizenship. There's no land return, no reparative measures for any real substance. So let me state this plainly. They have not welcomed us like long lost brothers and sisters. In fact, many reports from foundational Black Americans who've traveled or moved to Africa say that they were exploited financially, emotionally, and culturally. You over there crying and begging on your knees and happy to be back home, and they trying to get you for $1. They trying to sell you land that's not even yours. And that right there is why we've begun to delineate ourselves. We're not African Americans in the sense of recent immigrants. We're foundational Black Americans. We're descendants of those who built this country, who bled for it in every major war, who never left. We have a distinct lineage and a unique culture and a separate political reality. In 1965, the Immigration Act opened the doors for Black immigrants from the Caribbean and Africa. And while we don't resent their presence, let's not confuse their experience with ours. They are African Americans by paperwork, okay? We are African Americans by blood, by toil, by sacrifice, and by betrayal. So when people say don't sue Africa, that's our family, I say this: family doesn't sell you into slavery. Family doesn't forget about you after they've sold you into slavery. Family doesn't block your return with red tape and bureaucratic walls. If Africa is our mother, then she's been a neglectful, abusive mother. She sold her children for alcohol, drugs, for mirrors, and for money. And when we were taken, she never came looking for us. And since we're talking about Africa, there's an African proverb that says the child who is not embraced by the village or doesn't feel the warmth of the village will turn around and burn it to the ground so he can feel that warmth. Well, foundational Black Americans are that child. And we waited 400 plus years, and we're not asking anymore, we are litigating. This is why lawsuits against African nations are warranted. We have the legal foundation, we have the moral justification, and we have the historical evidence. Let me make something clear. If these African governments want to file cross claims and counterclaims against the European nations and the co-sponsors of this horror, then let them do that. But we are not obligated to wait for Europe to pay first. We start at the source. We start where the transaction began, because the truth is the entire global horror show would never have happened but for the active participation of African kingdoms and coastal states who knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't sell people by mistake. They sold people by design for profit. And now, centuries later, we've identified who they are. We see their descendants governing modern nations. We see the wealth, the gold, the infrastructure, the slavery helped build, and we see their silence. We see the indifference, and some of them have even acknowledged their wrongdoing. So what now? Now we sue. And when they're finally forced to the negotiating table, it won't be out of guilt. It'll be because we've applied legal pressure and forced their hand through international law, American law, economic leverage, and moral clarity. Justice delayed is not justice denied, unless we keep denying ourselves the right to seek it. Now, let me address something else. I know some of you are already thinking, you say, Dennis, why not sue America first, or Britain, or Portugal, or France? Let me walk you through it. Not as a talking head, but as a lawyer, as a litigator, as a strategist, as a descendant of those who were betrayed. Yes, America has absolutely participated in slavery. Yes, European powers entrenched themselves by transporting and exploiting our ancestors, but let's be smart. Let's be strategic. Let's stop playing checkers on a chessboard. Suing America, our own government, means we would be raiding the U.S. Treasury. And that treasury is filled with your money, my money. It's funded by our tax dollars. The tax dollars our children and their children after them will have to pay back. So think about that. Why would I rob my own house to pay myself reparations when I can walk next door and collect from the one who sold me in the first place? That's not justice, that's self-harm. That's burning down your own house when the trader is still free and flourishing. Now let's talk about the European nations, Portugal, Britain, France, Spain, and Netherlands. People say they owe us, but let's be honest. They never owed us anything to begin with. They were foreign invaders. They weren't our kin. They weren't our protectors. They were colonizers. They were traders. They were pirates with flags. They showed up. They pulled up their ships. They went to the coastal markets. The markets run by African kings and queens and chieftains and warlords. They said, we'll trade you guns, mirrors, cloth, and alcohol for black bodies. And Africa said, deal. Let me say that again. They don't owe us anything. But the ones who sold us, they were supposed to be our family. Now, here's where the hypocrisy gets real. When you talk to these modern Africans, they'll say, oh no, brother, we didn't sell our own people. We sold members of warring tribes. Okay, fair enough. Got it. So what you're saying is, you didn't betray your brothers. You just sold off your neighbors. Great, keep that same energy. Because now, when we show up in court and say, you're not our brothers, you're not our sisters, you're just another group who sold our ancestors for profit, you can't turn around and tell me, oh, but we are African. Black is black. No. You made that distinction first. You said we weren't family. You said we were just another tribe. You called us Akakas. You called us stray cats. You called us cotton pickers. You told us we were descended from slaves. You told us we were nobody. And then you brought your black behinds over here to benefit off of what we built, hiding under the cover of the foundational black Americans provide. So now, legally and morally, we owe you nothing. Not loyalty, not solidarity, and not our silence. You sold us. And now it's time for you to pay what you owe. You don't get to rewrite history because it's uncomfortable now. You're going to get to wrap yourself in kente cloth and claim Pan-African unity when your ancestors were running coastal slave markets. We are foundational black Americans. We are not property. We are not a myth. We are not your cousins. We are the descendants of those you betrayed for profit. So don't ask us for understanding. Don't ask us for forgiveness, and don't expect us to start a fight for reparations with every system that already taxes us. We're going where it started. We're going where the deal was made. And that means we're going to start at Africa. Now, let me get specific with you all and talk strategy. You see, a lot of folks want to start reparations conversation in 1619. And yes, that's when the first enslaved Africans were brought to what would become the United States. But from that point until the early 1800s, the transatlantic slave trade was in full swing, and it was perfectly legal under British law, international law, and US law. I'm not here to have a moral debate with you about whether it was wrong morally or not. I'm a litigator. I'm not a philosopher. I don't argue about morals in court. I argue about facts, law, and timelines. And here's the timeline that matters. The act prohibiting the importation of slaves, 1807, it passed Congress and was effective on January 1st, 1808. This federal law made it illegal to import enslaved Africans into the United States. Illegal, criminal, and prohibited. So everything before 1808, horrific, yes, but legal at the time. Everything after 1808, criminal under federal law. That's your clean shot. That's your legal opening. And that's exactly why my proposed executive order and the foundational Black American Slave Trade Restorative Justice Act of 2025 focuses exclusively on the post-1808 period. Shout out to my man, Janetta. Janetta, thank you, baby. I didn't mean my man. Thank you, sister. Thank you, Janetta. Shout out to you all. But that's why we focus on that. Because we're being intelligent, we're being strategic, we're not being emotional. Let's get into the case study that proves this point. I want to talk about the Clotilda. This was the last known slave ship to enter the United States in 1860, a full 52 years after the slave trade was outlawed. The Clotilda brought over 110 Africans who were illegally captured, illegally transported, and illegally sold into slavery in Alabama. And this ship was burned and sunk in Mobile River to hide the evidence. The perpetrators, including Captain William Foster and the slave trader Timothy Maher, were never criminally convicted. The legal case was attempted, but by the time it reached the court, there was no conviction. None was secured. Some sort of procedural issues, a lack of political will. And so, nevertheless, that's res judicata as to those descendants of those people. So we can't relitigate that case. But we can litigate the broader system of post-1808 illegal slave trading. The Clotilda wasn't alone. There were hundreds of illegal ships. Another notorious vessel was the Wanderer, which smuggled Africans into Georgia in 1858, again, violating federal law. And in places like Lake Charles, Louisiana, they even celebrate this criminal activity during something that they refer to as Contraband Days, a festival rooted in the illegal importation of enslaved people, among other things. So this wasn't rare. This is a known underground economy run by pirates, traders, and African sellers long after the law banned it. So here's the strategy. We focus on the period after 1808 because there was a clear federal law outlining slave importation. And we have detailed records, we have shipping laws, we have census documents, we have port registries. We know who did it. And we know where often where the enslaved people were taken. We know. And we know it was illegal at the time it was done. And that's what makes it litigatable. And here's the beauty of it. once we get the first successful case, once we set the precedent, the whole system of silence and denial begins to crumble like a house of cards. Because in the law, once a precedent is set, once there's a ruling in favor of a reparative justice for one family, one group of one descendant, the floodgates open, baby. And that's what this is about. So what that does is it takes this out of the realm of please give me. And it puts it in the hands of the judiciary where facts and law determine the outcome, not political sentiment. Let me make this real clear. If you want reparations, you're going to have to go on the offense. You're going to have to stop begging and start suing because the system is already here. The train tracks are laid. All we have to do is get on board and start filing. Federal courts, district courts, venues where the crimes occurred, we follow the law. We follow the facts. We file the lawsuits. And how you make reparative, and that's how you make it real. That's how you make reparations real. Or should I say that's how you make reparative justice real. But let me give you a warning. If we keep dragging our feet, if you keep being lazy and asking these politicians to do studies and going to these various different state legislators, you keep having it, you'll be here another 100 years. You're going to have another 100 years of panels and discussions and task force. You keep letting these so-called Pan-Africanists and Black Power, keep on letting them be in charge. In fact, in 100 years, it might be too late. Foundational Black Americans are already being dispersed and diluted and redefined. Do you know that we are below replacement level as far as production of children? And considering the fact with rising intermarriage and global movement and cultural assimilation, we might not even be statistically a distinct class a century from now. You want reparations in 100 years? They'll probably give them to you then because there'll only be 3 of us left in the United States. So if you want your children and grandchildren to inherit justice instead of excuses, this is the moment. This is the method, and this is the move. Let's take it to court. Now, why is this the moment? Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something that might shake some of you, but it's the truth. Donald J. Hotboy Trump is unlike any president this country has ever seen. He's not like Bill Clinton, who gave us mass incarceration with a smile. He's not like Barack Obama, who told us to our faces he wouldn't do anything specifically for Black Americans. And he's certainly not like Kamala, half Jamaican Harris, who before even entering into office made it crystal clear that she couldn't be expected to do anything for us either. What we're dealing with in Donald Trump is a political maverick. He's a disruptor. Like him or hate him, he does what the heck he wants to do. And he does it when he wants to and for whoever he wants to. And that, family, is exactly why he's the one president who might just sign this proposed executive order and push this legislation we propose that will open the door for foundational Black Americans to sue for reparative justice. You see, we've had presidents before who didn't like Black people, but they still did what was necessary for this country. Look at Harry Truman. He was a known racist. The man was a member of the KKK. But with the stroke of a pen, he desegregated the military, and that opened the door for so much more. Lyndon B. Johnson, another Southern segregationist. The man signed the Civil Rights Act. He was throwing the N-word around the White House all the time. What about Abraham Lincoln, who had no illusions about racial equality? He wasn't for Black folk being equal, but he still issued the Emancipation Proclamation to preserve the Union. These men didn't move because of love. They moved because of strategy and timing and necessity. And history has remembered them, warts and all, for doing something transformational for Black Americans. Donald Trump is cut from the same cloth. He doesn't care what the globalists think. He doesn't care what African presidents or prime ministers say about him. He don't give a damn about they Black behind. He's certainly not concerned with what the African Union feels. What does he care about? His legacy. He wants his name etched in stone as one of the most consequential presidents in American history. And if he signs an executive order directing the Department of Justice to investigate the identity of African nations and foreign actors responsible for violating the 1808 Act prohibiting the importation of slaves, that legacy is locked. If he signs into law the foundational Black American Slave Trade Restorative Justice Act, allowing us, the descendants of those trafficked and betrayed, to sue these African successor states, he will go down in history alongside Lincoln, Truman, and Johnson. This is his moment to become the president who gave Black Americans the legal power, not just empty power and promises, not reparations through welfare, not reparations through representation, but real leverage through the courts. And let's be honest about Africa for a moment, for you all who still romanticize it. They say Africa is the continent of the future. We hear about Africa rising, but I'm gonna ask you something. What about the Africans that they sold? What about their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren? What about us foundational Black Americans? They've shown us no love. They turn their backs on us. They come to America, they benefit from our blood, our civil rights struggle, our foundation, and then they have the audacity to call us Akata, which loosely translates to stray cats, because we live out in the wilderness, in the bushes. We have no home. That's an insult. They call us lazy. They mock our culture. They say we have no culture. Well, okay. They owe us because they sold us. And now it's time for payback. It's time for payback for what they did. We don't need your apologies. We need legal accountability. And we're not asking, we're taking. And so for you all who are clinging to the fantasy that the Democratic Party is going to deliver reparations, y'all need to wake up. They've had every chance. Your Black president, Obama, didn't do it. Biden damn sure didn't do it. Harris wouldn't have done it. But Trump has nothing to lose and everything to gain. If Trump signs this executive order, if Trump backs this legislation, if Trump empowers foundational Black Americans to go on the offense and sue for damages under the existing federal international law, he will become the most impactful president for Black America since Abraham Lincoln. Let that sink in. This isn't about worshiping Trump. I told you all at the outset, vote your interest. Again, this is not about worshiping this man. You don't have to like him, but it's about recognizing the unique opportunity that we have with him and seizing it. Because here's the truth. In 100 years, there may not be a coherent Black American identity left to fight for. Between intermarriage, immigration, cultural erasure, and the numbers of our numbers that are shrinking, if we don't do it now, it ain't gonna get done. You heard Dr. Claude Anderson. If we don't get reparations, we up out of here. So when they finally do go ahead and hand out us our reparations, it might be too little too late to a group that no longer exists in numbers is strong enough to even battle. But right now, we're still here. We still have a voice. We still have grounds for a lawsuit backed by federal law, judicial precedent, and moral clarity. We don't have to wait for handouts, family. We don't have to beg. We don't need a seat at the table. We can build our own doggone table. We can serve some subpoenas on it. I think Donald Trump is the only president bold enough and independent enough to sign this thing into law. And I think time is now. I want to acknowledge the people who contribute to the super chat. I don't know if anybody gave anything to the Cash App. I'm going to take a look right now. Have y'all learned something tonight? If you learned something tonight, I would appreciate you if y'all help me earn something tonight. Shout out to my man Henry Mitchell. Shout out to my man Jamel. Shout out to Jamel Rob. Thank you so much for the $100. Also, Rodney Hudson, good looking out. Theodore Johnson, thank you so much, baby. Look, we got 23 super chats. We got 23. It'd be great to get to 30 if you heard me. If you learned something. If you didn't learn nothing from me, baby, that's fine. If I didn't present you with any new ideas, if you had all this figured out beforehand, that's cool. But maybe we can get to 30 before I finish. Okay, maybe we can get to 30. If we can get to 30, that'll be pretty darn good. Anyway, shout out to my man Red Sigma. Welcome back, bro. Man, Uncle D ain't never went nowhere, baby. I'm still here doing what it make. I'm gonna make it do what it do. Mr. 43TX. Salute Mr. Spurling in the chat. Thank you so much, fam. Good looking out. Also, Tame. Okay, we got 24. Let's see if we can get 30. Got 24 super chats. Tame Chaos says, I can rock with this. However, I'm curious why not also include the United States, assuming this is to lay the pathway, because you're not going to get it from the United States, brother. And why would we want to take money from ourselves to pay ourselves? That's just tax dollars that we Black folk are going to have to pay back. I explained that thoroughly, but I'm glad you asked the question. Shout out to Gift One, Dennis Spurling Park. Thank you so much. Hey, man, I need like 12 more people to become members, and I will have 200 members, man. That'll be awesome. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel right now. Shout out to Derek Hollinger, 1999 super sticker. My man MS Delta got my Mississippi homeboy. Shout out, family, man. Thank you so much for the $150 super chat. Good looking out, brother. Keep fighting, Lawyer Spurling. We see your good work, man. Thank you so much, family. Nana said, Uncle D, I'm pretty sure my folks were slaves of Nathaniel and Gideon Macon. U.S. Black folks now have the Macon name. This U.S. politician owned Buck Spring Plantation in North Carolina. Start there, work your way back. All right, start there and work your way back. What attorneys can we hire? Will we be taxed? Look, all you have to do is help me get on board. And some of you creative people, I know you all can start pages where people can sign petitions and say, hey, sign this law. Donald Trump has it in his possession. You could call these different politicians, Ted Cruz, take what I gave you, take what I put out there, screenshot it, print it, and send it to your own politicians. Let's get this work done. This is not a one-person job. This is all hands on deck. All right? So everybody get in. Now, as far as, I can't tell you yet because the law's not in place. Executive order hasn't been put in place. But all the man has to do is sign a document, and we can get this thing going. Shout out to Timothy Bright. Thank you, Deacon Dennis. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you for the $2. Black Toxic Masculinist, Revenge of the Wildcats. Yeah, shout out to the Wild. Shout out to all of us. Odell J, I would pay good money for you and brother Tim Black to have a conversation on your YouTube channels. Two like-minded. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Odell J. Also, we got 28 super chats, and we can get to 30. That'll be cool, man. Let y'all give me the 30. We got 28, and that ain't great, but 28 is great. But if we can get to 30, that'll be perfect. Anyway, shout out to LTD Foundation, Black American Trad Wife. Happy to learn and support you, Uncle Blizzard King. Oh, thank you so much, sweetheart. I appreciate you. Who else we got up in here? Sharaha, $20 super sticker. Yaya's kids, thank you so much. All praise to the Most High. Yes, indeed. All wisdom comes from the Most High. I just appreciate the blessings that the Lord has put upon me to come up with this idea. But, I have a creative mind and I'm unrestricted when it comes to these things. And again, this is what I do on a regular basis. A lot of these lawyers on YouTube, they're not litigators. You can look me up. Okay, you can look at all the cases I've litigated. You can look at all the former clients I've had. will tell you I did an outstanding job for them and so on and so forth. So I really do this. You see what I mean? It's like asking, I mean, this is what I do, you know, and this is a problem, a generational problem, and I want to try to get it solved, or at least show my people the pathway to get it solved. Shout out to Cody Marshall. So I just want the cash. Yes, sir. We don't care who it comes from. LTD, did you see how Democratic Black American leadership killed the reparations bill in California? The same blacks in leadership up there were part of the task force to support California. Yeah, I saw it, baby. That's why I'm trying to tell you. These people are going to continue acting as gatekeepers, and they're never going to give you reparations. So we need to approach this from a different route, okay? Cash though, damn Aunt cooking today. I sure was cooking, man. I was barbecuing, man. Good looking out. Cody Martin, how this guy are going to dictate we're going to spend our reparations. Yeah, man, these people are so arrogant. They're so disrespectful to Black Americans, and we need to really begin to separate ourselves from them. LTD said it works against the Dem party of FBA receive reparations. I'd be happy if we could be tax-free for the 5 generations, each FBA having 1 million life insurance policy. All right, we got 29 super chats. We almost got 30. If y'all can give me the 30, that'd be great. Anyway, all bootleg snacks. That lady was mad because he couldn't get the snacks. Hologram, EMC, man, he been here for a long time. Good looking out for the $3. Thank you so much. All bootleg snacks, Baby D in the motherland. Who else we got? Kwame, my man Kwame, Mat Ra Naim Metin Hotep. The concept of federal government giving reparations to the descendants of slaves is unusual and interesting, but he doesn't see it happening. Washington President Donald Trump. Thank you so much, family. I appreciate. Yeah, he does, but he don't mind us suing Africa. I guarantee you that. That'll be more money for our economy. Shout out to Gloria Sabry. Thank you so much for the $4.99. Janetta, tell it like it is. Much love, my FBA family. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Nucleus, thank you for the $10 super sticker. Not now a new member. No one new member. Thank you so much. Boris Barracuda, $2 super sticker. Also, Danny Do, let's go reparations. We are the Hebrew Israelites. Don Dorsey, thank you so much for $5. And Ricky Nelson Jr., thank you so much. We got 29 super stickers. That's cool. I appreciate you all. I work real hard. I appreciate the 29 super stickers. Thank you so much. If you didn't contribute to the super chat, look, I understand. Again, those of you guys who did, this is a voluntary thing. You don't even need to be here. I appreciate you guys even being here, okay? Because this has been a long, complicated lesson. A lot of people they're not even ready to even deal with this. Listen to the discourse around it. But the bottom line is, man, I want to thank everybody for contributing to the super chat who did. Like I said, if you learn something, I should earn something. I got 29 super chats. That means at least 29 people have learned something and felt so compelled to contribute. Not everybody can do it. I get it. Money is tight. That's all right. But all the ones who did do it, that's cool. Nevertheless, if we can get to 30, that'll be great. We're at 29. That will put me at one more super chat. But I got some more to say. Okay. Well, number one, look, if you've been involved in some sort of accident, I need you to give me a call. My office number is 713-229-0770. If you've been involved in a car accident, I've hired some new staff to begin to take on more people. I've come up with some partnerships with folks in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, of course, Texas, Louisiana, wherever you are. Shout out to who else we got up in here. Shout out to Aries 4. What is reparations to you, Dennis? The Black community was never cleared about. Also, do you not see the division from the top down with FBA? Yeah, I ain't getting into all that, baby. I'm not into all that. I'm a litigator. I want my people to be made whole. You see what I mean? That's where I'm at. And that's why I cut through the chase with all that. And I defined it in this broadcast. Please, if you have an opportunity, to take the opportunity to look through what I've said. But, there have been many great lawyers who've tried to do this, Johnny Cochran and so many others. You see what I mean? But the bottom line is we got the ball now. And it's our time. We're not going to let it slide. I'm giving you the roadmap, okay? Shout out to everybody. We got 30 super chats. That's awesome. Now, we can get to 35, that'll be live, but I want to go ahead and get through this thing. And here's the thing. you know, and this is good, okay? To all you folks who are lukewarm, you know, you're backpedaling, right? You to me, you're spineless. You spineless Pan-African foundational Black Americans out there. This message is for you, okay? Huh? I see you. I hear your cowardice. You the ones who clutch your pearls and wring your hands every time we talk about holding Africa accountable for its role in the transatlantic slave trade. You rather sip tea and light candles and count chakras and wait another 10 generations begging America or Europe for reparations than do the uncomfortable work of demanding justice from the very people who sold us into slavery in the first place. Shout out to Alonzo Dunn. That's what you'd rather do. You don't want liberation. You want permission. You don't want justice. You want pity. But this fight isn't for the soft. This is for the bold. This is for the foundational Black Americans who understand that freedom is taken, not granted. And now to the hypocritical Africans who are watching this broadcast, you come to my country and you benefit from everything that foundational Black Americans built. Shout out to Sharia. You fill our universities under diversity quotas that were fought for with the blood of foundational Black Americans. You enjoy our jobs, our housing, our liberties. Your civil rights are secured through the struggles that you didn't participate in. Yet you have the audacity to look down your noses at us and call us akatas and tell us we don't have any culture, you disrespect us. And then you cry foul when we say it's time for Africa to pay us what they owe. Like, let me help you. Let me make this crystal clear. You have no moral high ground. Your ancestors were complicit. Your leaders signed treaties and sold us in bulk and lined their pockets. This is a historical fact. And if you're offended by us pursuing justice, then you're standing on the side of the oppressor, and you need to mind your business and go home. Now, to the Caribbeans, I love your little islands. I like going to visit. Shout out to Ronnie Armin. To the Caribbeans, and you know exactly who you are. You got here on visas and passport and student aid and funded by the very institutions and FBA ancestors bled and died to create. You came to this country wearing your national flags, but the second it became profitable, you start wearing the FBA identity like a costume. You reap the benefits of affirmative action and Black scholarships and diversity hiring meant for us. But you were never us. And then when we finally get serious about doing something for ourselves, when we draft legislation, file lawsuits, demand reparations, you want to pipe up with confusion. You got objections. You want to create distractions. Let me save you the trouble. You don't belong in this fight. Foundational Black Americans are not the global garbage bin for every displaced Black person with a sad story who wants to come to our shores. We are a distinct lineage with distinct injury, and we're pursuing legal and tangible justice through the American court system. And frankly, we don't care who gets offended. So to all you Pan-Africanists, you weak-kneed FBA appeasers, you ungrateful Africans and the Caribbean opportunities, get out of the way. We are the children of the cotton fields and the tobacco fields and the sugar cane. We are the sons and daughters of Tulsa, Rosewood, and Nat Turner. We are the heirs of enslaved brilliance and broken chains. We are old and we are coming to collect. Whether you support us or not is irrelevant. The train is leaving the station. Either ride with us or be crushed under the wheels. This is our time. This is our justice, and this is our legacy. Now move or be moved. Shout out to everybody who came through. Ronnie Armin, James Turner, Cody Marshall, Elevated Engineering. God bless y'all. I love y'all as always. At this time, I'm going to bid you a farewell. And as I always say at this time, this is Uncle D, and I'm out.
Dennis Spurling.
In the city where the lights don't sleep, Uncle D got the vibe so deep. Representing men strong and free. Dennis Spurling is the king of the spree. In the streets where the rhythm flows, black men rising, that's how it goes. Uncle D got the truth to show. In his heart, that's where the fire glows. Late night tuning, light up the stream. Dennis Spurling, wisdom gleam. Voices whisper truth and insight. In his podcast, feel the light. Harmony in every word. Truth and laughter you've heard. Well, that's all right. Wave after wave of smooth delight. Dennis brings the dark to light. That's the Elizabeth, baby! Share the tales unfold. The stories pour like morning gold. Feeling the wisdom inside me. Subscribing like time after time.
Black men, black men, black men. I want to salute you. Your incarceration rate is down. The education rate is up. We up. We went from, we are doing great for ourselves. So you should salute yourself. Shout out to all the brothers out there, whether you're a truck driver or engineer, whether you're an electrician or garbage man, a doctor, a lawyer, if you're a hard-working brother, if you fresh out the penitentiary, but you on your grind and you doing it legal and you trying to make amends for yourself, man, I salute you too, brothers. God bless you. This is Uncle D, and you know, I'm out.